Chapter 181. You Must Help Me Get Revenge. In a secluded corner of the Grand Spirit Arena, Ma Hongjun lay trembling. He'd just awakened from a coma, if you could call it that, but he was in agonizing pain. His legs were gone, severed cleanly by a blade, and every throb of those wounds threatened to drag him back into unconsciousness. He knew that if he drifted off again, he might never wake up. Clenching his teeth against the torment, Ma Hongjun forced his heavy eyelids open. Weak though he was, he knew he had to stay awake at all costs. Gathering what little strength remained in his arms, he began to crawl toward the distant roar of the crowd. Behind him, he left a trail of dark, sticky blood across the arena floor, an eerie reminder of how close he had come to death. His body begged him to stop, to lie down and let darkness reclaim him, but his will would not allow it. Inch by inch, he dragged himself forward on hands and elbows, every movement sending fresh waves of pain ripping through his torso. Just then, hurried footsteps echoed outside the corner where he huddled. Ma Hongjun perked up, straining his ears. He recognized the pace and urgency. It was Tang San and his companions racing this way. "No sign of the fatty," one voice called out, frustration clear in his tone. "The match is about to start. If he doesn't show, we'll have to put in a substitute." Another voice sighed. "There's nothing we can do at this point." Ma Hongjun's heart pounded. He wanted to speak, to shout his presence, but all that came out was a hoarse whisper. Yet in that faint sound lay his promise. He would not die here. Not until he claimed his revenge. "Where on earth has that big guy wandered off to play this time?" Tang San's voice rang down the corridor. Ma Hongjun, doubled over with pain, fought to muster the last of his spirit power. "Third brother, Dai Boss, I'm here. Come save me," he gasped. Tang San and Dai Mubai froze at the cry, then bolted toward the source. They crashed into a wider junction, where Ma Hongjun lay crawling across the blood-stained floor, each movement agony. "Fatty, what happened to you?" Dai Mubai sank onto his haunches, his confident swagger gone, replaced by disbelief. Tang San knelt beside him, eyes widening as they fell on the severed legs discarded a few feet away. Without hesitation, Tang San extended his Xuanyu-infused hand over the wounds. Drawing on Xuantiangong's inner force, he directed a warm, healing energy into the stumps. The torrential bleeding slowed to a trickle. Ma Hongjun exhaled shakily, pain and relief mingling in his eyes. Tang San exchanged a quick, relieved glance with Dai Mubai. Their comrade was gravely injured, but he was alive. Sweat rolled down Tang San's forehead as he pressed a clean cloth to Ma Hongjun's leg. "Luckily, the bleeding's finally stopped," he said, exhaling in relief. Dai Mubai knelt beside them, eyes narrowing as he examined the deep bruises and swelling. "With injuries like this, Fatty won't be able to play," he said, his voice heavy. "We'll have to rely on our substitutes." Ma Hongjun's face contorted with pain and frustration. Tears welled in his eyes as he looked between his two brothers. "Third brother, Boss Dai, you must avenge me," he pleaded, his voice quivering. "Tell me who did this." Dai Mubai's hand curled into a fist so tight the leather of his glove creaked. "They dared to strike at Shrek Academy like this. It's a deliberate attack on us," he growled. Tang San's expression hardened. He crouched to Ma Hongjun's level and spoke in a low, cold voice. "Who hurt you?" Between ragged sobs, Ma Hongjun managed to choke out two names, Cheng Xiao and a blonde woman. "I saw them sneaking around backstage. When I tried to get a closer look, they ambushed me." At the mention of Cheng Xiao's name, Tang San's jaw clenched so tightly a vein throbbed at his temple. Dai Mubai's eyes flashed with fury. They both understood immediately this was more than an accident. It was a calculated move to shake Shrek Academy's confidence before the competition. Tang San stood, his voice steely. "Then it's settled. We'll expose their scheme and make them pay." Dai Mubai rose at his side, shoulders squared. "Let them try to mess with us again. They'll regret underestimating Shrek Academy." Ma Hongjun managed a weak, grateful smile, still clutching his leg. "Thank you. Third brother Boss Dai, I knew I could count on you." Together, the three of them prepared to turn their outrage into action, determined to defend both their honor and their undefeated record. "Xiao San, what do we do now?" Dai Mubai's brow was tight with worry as he turned to Tang San. "Shouldn't we report this to the dean? They can't just pull stunts like this without risking disqualification." Tang San glanced down at Ma Hongjun, crumpled on the ground. Do you really think the dean can help at this point? He asked, voice low. Then, softer, he added, Fatty, be honest. Did you tail those guys and get caught? Is that why you're like this? Sange I? Ma Hongjun stammered, unable to meet Tang San's eyes. He shifted, faintly aware that his legs were no longer under him. Dai Mubai knelt, gently lifting the severed stumps. Forget about the dean, Tang San said, cutting in. Right now, getting you back to the Shrek Lounge as fast as possible is the only thing that matters. He reached down and gathered Ma Hongjun into his arms. Together, they hurried away from the ambush. Dai Mubai cradling Ma Hongjun's legs as Tang San carried their friend toward safety. By the time the sun had climbed high in the sky, the stands on either side of the grand arena were packed with eager spectators. A hush fell over the crowd, broken only by the crisp ring of a battle bell echoing across the Colosseum floor. Everyone leaned forward, waiting for the next match to begin, and for the secrets behind Ma Hongjun's brutal injury to come to light. Next up, let's welcome the teams from 7-Star Academy and Shrek Academy to the stage. Let's see what kind of fireworks will fly when these two powerhouses collide. Standing on the raised platform, the announcer cleared his throat and surveyed the crowd. When the murmurs died down, he raised his voice so everyone could hear. I've heard that 7-Star Academy is backed by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince himself, he declared with a flourish. They must be unstoppable. A ripple of excited chatter ran through the stands. They're no joke. They even poached a team straight from Tiandu Royal Academy, one spectator whispered to a neighbor. Seriously, another chipped in. If you're Crown Prince backed, you've got to be top tier. A third voice rose, eager to change the subject. So what about Shrek Academy? Anyone know how tough they are? Shrek Academy? Scoffed someone else. You mean the lot that shows up in that horrible puke green uniform? They're trash. They don't stand a chance. Come on, 7-Star will roll right over them, a fan shouted, rallying the crowd. Yeah, beat up those Shrek losers, another added, slapping palms with friends in agreement. With the two academies' names now echoing through the arena, the fans resumed their excited banter, some in hushed tones, others cheering at the top of their lungs. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, every eye fixed on the looming showdown between royalty's finest and the scrappy underdogs in green. The roar of commotion beyond the door drew Cheng Xiao to his feet. He straightened, preparing to step forward, but before he could, Qianren Shui rose silently beside him. With a cool tilt of her chin, she announced, when we perform later, I'll go first. In the Shrek Academy lounge, a pair of tournament officials hovered anxiously. It had been far too long since any of Shrek's players had appeared. Where are Tang San and the others? Flanders demanded, shifting in his seat. The match is about to start. Why haven't they shown up? Beside him, Oscar's eyes were even more troubled, but his voice stayed calm. Relax, Flanders. I've sent Erlong to find Xiao San and the rest. Our job now is just to stall these officials. Flanders forced himself to nod, bracing for the inevitable confrontation, when with a thunderous crash, the door flew open. Tang San burst in. Ma Hongjun slung across his shoulders like a sack of grain, and Dai Mubai trailed behind, gripping two bloodied legs in his hands. Flanders sprang to his feet, face draining of color. Bloody hell, Dai Boss, what happened to Fatty? Did they really chop his legs off for harassing a beautiful woman? Oscar blurted, springing to his feet in shock. At his words, Flanders went pale. He was Ma Hongjun's only disciple, and now his master lay crippled. What could they do? Quick, Xiaoao, bring the big recovery sausage. Flanders half-carried, half-supported Ma Hongjun as they hurried away from the scene. At the same time, he shoved the specially prepared healing sausage, Oscar's own concoction, into Ma Hongjun's mouth. Without even chewing, Ma Hongjun swallowed. Within moments, the drawn lines on his face began to soften, and his color returned. Rubbing his stomach, Ma Hongjun managed a weak smile. Sorry I'm an hour late, had a bout of diarrhea. Chapter 182, Confrontation. Elder Flanders burst into the infirmary, eyes wide with alarm. Master, what on earth happened here? He demanded, his voice tight. Tang San and Dai Mubai exchanged glances. With a curt nod, Tang San explained in clipped tones, Ma Hongjun's legs had been severed, stricken down by a woman's blade, of all things. Flanders froze, every color draining from his face. He looked at the immobilized Ma Hongjun on the cot, Pain etched across the younger man's features and felt a surge of helpless fury. Before he could speak, Tang San laid a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Elder Flanders," he said quietly, "we'll settle the bigger questions in time. Right now, we need to save Hongjun. Prepare what you can, medicines, spirit herbs, everything at your disposal." Flanders swallowed hard. As Ma Hongjun's master and mentor, he had always treated the young disciple like a son. Now, because of a reckless pursuit of infatuation, Hongjun had paid a terrible price. His fists clenched so tightly his knuckles whitened. I understand," he stammered. Turning away, Flanders' shoulders shook with both rage and shame. If he could go back, he'd forbid Ma Hongjun from chasing after that woman. But regrets alone wouldn't repair brittle bones or staunch the bleeding. By the time Flanders hurried off to marshal the infirmary's resources, Tang San and Dai Mubai stood in grim silence beside Ma Hongjun's bed. The clinic was still, save for the faint drip of the spirit-healing elixir Flanders had requested on his way out. Outside, the storm of questions waited, questions of who had attacked Hongjun, why, and how they could bring the culprit to justice. But for this moment, the only priority was saving their comrade's life. And so, as Flanders returned with a tray of salves and tonics, Tang San knelt by Hongjun's side and began the painstaking work of spirit healing, determined to pull him back from the brink. Flanders stood frozen, rage warping his features as he stared at Ma Hongjun sprawled on the ground, both legs severed at the knees. He struggled for words. What do you want me to say?" Before anyone could respond, the Grandmaster hurried forward and gripped Flanders by the shoulders. "Flanders, Hongjun is your disciple. We need your help finding out what happened, not your insults." Flanders shrugged off the Grandmaster's hand with a furious jerk. "Insults? Fine. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. Interrogate Dagubo? Pester Cheng Xiao? If Hongjun hadn't been so greedy for beauties, he wouldn't be lying here like a broken toy." He turned on his heel, glaring back at the others. "And for the record, Hongjun is my direct student, not yours. You have no right to interfere." The Grandmaster raised a palm, his voice ringing out sharp and commanding. "That's enough. You two can settle this later. Right now, the game is about to begin. Focus on that. Everything else can wait until it's over." Flanders' lips trembled as he heard the words. He shot Ma Hongjun a hateful glare, then forced a helpless shrug and motioned for the others to hurry on to the competition. As they departed, he fumbled for his communicator, urgently summoning the nearest healing soulmaster. Ma Hongjun's leg had nearly been severed. Time was the only thing standing between him and permanent loss. Today promised to be Tiando City's most electrifying day of the year. The qualifying rounds of the Senior Soulmaster Elite competition, an event that had captured every eyebrow raise and whispered prediction across the city, were finally building toward their most thrilling climax. Under the guidance of event staff, Cheng Xiao and his companions threaded their way through a long, dimly lit passageway. At its end, a pair of heavy doors swung open, and they stepped out into the arena concourse. Almost at once, a wave of noise crashed over them, roaring applause, excited chatter, and blaring announcements so loud it made their heads spin. Cheng Xiao clamped a hand over his ear. His friends staggered, momentarily unsteady from the sudden assault on their bling-up senses. After a few breathless seconds of disorientation, the group shook themselves free of the dizzy spell. Cheng Xiao exchanged a determined look with his teammates. This was it, the moment they'd trained for, the roar of the crowd, their call to battle. Ahead lay the grand stage of the Senior Soul Master Elite competition, and nothing could keep them from seizing the chance to prove themselves. To conceal their true strength on opening day, 7-Star Academy deliberately limited its preliminary team to just 6 members: Cheng Xiao, Yu Tianheng, Qian Renshui, Ning Rongrong, the Shi brothers, and Yu Feng. At the same time, under the prodding of the event staff, the Shrek Academy students also filed into the arena, each sporting unusually flamboyant uniforms that drew dismissive glances from the organizers. Only a single staff member was assigned to escort the entire Shrek delegation, whereas the 7-Star cohort was flanked by 3 marshals. As the Shrek students emerged from the tunnel, the arena's master of ceremonies thundered the names of each 7-Star contestant. Above them, on a towering platform at one side of the Grand Soul Arena, the Soul Guide projector ignited a brilliant golden beam. The light settled on the ground and swept forward in perfect sync with the seven-star team's march, spotlighting their every step. Unseen by the cheering crowd, every detail had been engineered by Shui Qinghe. After all, he'd poured his resources into Seven-Star Academy, and he wasn't about to let a lackluster entrance diminish the prestige of his investment. The moment you set eyes on Seven-Star Academy, you know they mean business. Their black and blue uniforms are embroidered with 7 stars, and beneath them sits a stylized, chibi rendition of the Jade Phosphorus Snake Emperor, glinting under the soul-guiding lights and radiating an unmistakable heroic aura. By contrast, Shrek Academy's team looks like they raided a swamp, dull olive-green outfits stitched crudely with 6 bold characters in bright red thread, recruitment. Beneath that, in tiny letters, it reads, "For advertising fees, please contact Dean Flender of Shrek Academy." The result is humiliating. As both teams enter the arena, a wave of snickers and mocking whispers washes over Tang San and his friends, stinging them with embarrassment and anger. Daimubai clenches his fists, jaw tightening. This lousy contest organizer is using us as a green backdrop to highlight those 7-star snobs, he growls. Just wait. When we take the stage, I'll show them exactly what the Shrek Academy team is made of. Boss Dai, when you step onto the stage, just give him a slap across the face, Tang San said, impatience and anger lacing his tone. Never forget, we're monsters, not your everyday prodigies. His words still hanging in the air, the Shrek Academy contestants ascended the soul-fighting stage, greeted by the crowd's mocking laughter. Spotlights swept over the arena as the audience leaned forward, eager for the showdown. On the opposite side, Cheng Xiao stood waiting, his posture calm and assured. Tang San allowed himself a confident smile. Under his master's guidance, he had just acquired his 4th soul ring, a 10,000-year-old ring of light. In past encounters, Cheng Xiao had held the upper hand, but this time was different. Today, only one warrior could claim the championship, and Tang San was determined it would be him. He squared his shoulders and met Cheng Xiao's gaze head-on. Cheng Xiao, he called out clearly, prepare to have your treasured dark attribute trampled by my blue-silver grass. Cheng Xiao's expression remained unreadable, but his steady eyes betrayed nothing of fear or doubt. Whatever Tang San had planned, it wouldn't shake Cheng Xiao's confidence. The stage was set, and soon they would see whose strength had truly grown stronger. Chapter X, the 5-year tournament begins. Qian Renshui sat in the shadows of the VIP stands, her heart a storm of frustration. Ever since news broke that Prince Shexing had invited Du Gubo to preside over today's opening ceremonies, her carefully laid plans felt upended. This was no ordinary competition. It was the 5-year Soul Master Tournament, the grandest event in the Soul Master world. 28 teams, each handpicked and sponsored by one of the realm's great houses or sects, would vie for glory. The arena pulsed with anticipation as the participants took their places on the Fighting Soul stage. The VIP section was a veritable who's who of power and prestige. In the central row sat Emperor Shuiye, resplendent in imperial robes, flanked by Spirit Hall's Platinum Bishop Solace. Beside them, the legendary Grandmaster Ning Fengji, whose counsel had steered the empire through countless crises, surveyed the scene with calm assurance. And there, incongruously dressed in flowing green, was Du Gubo, the formidable warrior Prince Shuixing had coaxed from seclusion. His stern gaze swept over the competitors, as if weighing each one's soul power on the spot. Emperor Shuiye turned to Ning Fengji with a bemused smile. Master Ning, 28 teams enter the fray today. Pray tell, which do you think holds the greatest promise? Ning Fengji's lips curved into a knowing smile. Your Majesty, of the 28, there is indeed one team that stands out, yet I must beg your pardon, I won't disclose my choice just yet. He paused, his eyes twinkling with quiet confidence. But rest assured, Your Majesty, the champion of this tournament will belong to the Empire. As the Emperor chuckled and leaned back in his seat, Qian Renshui clenched her fists. Whatever grand design lay behind Ning Fengji's cryptic assurance, she vowed she would not be left behind. Today, under the watchful eyes of the realm's greatest, her moment for revenge and redemption was at hand. The moment Master Ning finished speaking, Saras, the Spirit Hall's Platinum Bishop seated beside him, offered a courteous but clearly strained smile. "Master Ning, you're exceedingly confident," she said. "You insist the Imperial team will take the championship. Perhaps you've yet to appreciate the true power of our spirit hall." Ning Fengji merely returned her smile with a slight, knowing curve of his lips. "If the Platinum Bishop is so certain," he replied evenly, "all the better. I'm very much looking forward to seeing your team in action." Before things could escalate, the Snow Knight Emperor, observing from his central seat, raised a gloved hand. He regarded the two leaders with cool authority. "There's no need for you to spar with words," he said. "Once the competition concludes, the outcome will speak for itself. Master Ning's predictions are his own affair, are they not, Bishop Saris?" Saris inclined her head deferentially toward the Emperor. "Of course, Your Majesty," she acknowledged. "Still, I must stress this. Spirit Hall has set its sights on only one prize, claiming the final championship." The Emperor's eyes flicked back to Ning Fengji. His tone took on a hint of wry amusement. "Spirit Hall's ambition is admirable, but you may be overestimating your chances, Bishop." With a flick of his wrist, he signaled that the discussion was over. The assembly fell silent, each side braced for the tournament's opening bell. "Your Spirit Hall really had a shot before, but this time around, you'd best not get overconfident." Chapter 183. Everyone is shocked. A deep, ancient voice cut through the murmurs of the assembled saints in Douluo, forcing Platinum Bishop Salazar to turn sharply, his expression darkening. The speaker was none other than Poison Douluo Dugu Bo, renowned throughout the world as the Poison Domination. Salazar and Sarasa had never crossed paths with the Dean of Seven-Star Academy before, yet everyone in the hall knew better than to underestimate or offend a titled Douluo of Dugu Bo's caliber. Emperor Shui, seated upon his throne, smiled knowingly at the exchange. "I hear that, Dean Dugu, you've recently taken charge of a new college," he said. "Is there something unique about your team this year?" Dugu Bo inclined his head slightly, his voice steady and confident. "I won't pretend it's anything less than extraordinary. In fact, I'll go so far as to say this: the championship of this competition will belong to Seven-Star Academy." A ripple ran through the crowd. The Emperor's interest visibly piqued. "Oh, such bold confidence. Seven-Star Academy must truly be exceptional." Dugu Bo's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "As Dean, I see no reason not to back my own school with utmost conviction, both in heart and in reason." He paused, eyes sweeping over the gathered elite. "And there are solid reasons for my certainty." Silence fell as every pair of eyes turned toward him. In that moment, the confidence radiating from the Poison Domination convinced even the most skeptical that something extraordinary was indeed brewing at Seven-Star Academy. Lord Dugu Bo settled back in his VIP seat, a pleased smile tugging at his lips. "After all, my granddaughter is on this team, and Sectmaster Ning's daughter as well. With the full support of the Chiba Glazed sect, we'll have no trouble winning these qualifiers." At his words, nearby nobles stiffened and turned toward Ning Fengji. None had expected the sect master's daughter to join Seven Stars Academy. Under their curious stares, Ning Fengji offered a courteous nod. "Lord Dugu speaks truly. My daughter is indeed competing for Seven Stars Academy." A low murmur rippled through the assembly of royal dignitaries and senior officials. "Look, the match is about to begin." In the VIP pavilion, conversation faded as the soul-fighting stage flared to life. Across the arena, Daimubai's eyes locked on Cheng Xiao, a fierce grin spreading across his face. "Humph, this time, Cheng Xiao, you won't escape defeat." He lifted his fists before his chest and bellowed, "Brothers, ignite your martial spirits." Almost at once, 2 golden soul rings and 2 violet soul rings materialized around Daimubai's arms, their glow signaling his readiness for battle. As Xiao Wu, Juju King, Oscar, and Tai Long formed up behind him, each released their martial soul in unison. Glittering spirit rings materialized around their wrists. Oscar and Juju King showed the familiar 2 yellow and 1 purple ring, undeniably strong, but unchanged without the aid of the fairy grass. Xiao Wu, ever industrious in her training, had already climbed swiftly to a 4th ring on her own. Even as a recultivating soul beast, she'd proved herself more than capable of rapid advancement. A buzz of astonishment rippled through the crowd. Tang San, standing at the forefront of the Shrek Academy team, felt every eye fixed on him, and then he saw it himself. One by one, his 4 spirit rings deepened to obsidian black. In the world of soul masters, the standard progression is 2 yellow rings, 1 purple, and finally 1 black. Yet here he was, flaunting not 1 but 4 black rings. Such a configuration defied precedent. No soul master before had ever achieved it. Impossible! Emperor Shui burst from the VIP pavilion, his voice echoing across the arena. How on earth did this child do it? Dugu, it looks like your 7-star academy is in for a world of hurt. Dugu Bo allowed himself a faint, knowing smile. Your Majesty, let's hold off on our verdict. The match hasn't even begun yet. Jump to conclusions now, and you might, to find yourself in for an unpleasant surprise. On the vast soul arena, Cheng Xiao watched the Shrek team finish releasing their soul rings. A slow, confident grin spread across his lips. If he simply overpowered them from the outset, the duel would be finished in an instant. And where would the fun be in that? Across the gray expanse, Cheng Xiao and Tang San faced one another. Cheng Xiao's aura was dark and steady, a stark foil to Tang San's vibrant green glow. Tang San's gaze burned with cold resolve as he fixed his eyes on his opponent. Cheng Xiao, he said quietly, today you'll finally taste the bitterness of defeat. This was the man who had subjected him to endless humiliation. Today, Tang San was determined to wash it all away. A low chuckle rumbled from Cheng Xiao's throat. Oh, then let me show you how it feels to fall. With a single fluid motion, Cheng Xiao tilted his head, and an immense surge of soul power burst from him, rippling across the arena like the first thunder of a coming storm. Dark, 10,000-year soul rings, 5 of them, rose from Cheng Xiao's ankles in concentric spirals, wreathed in inky smoke that blurred his form. Tang San staggered back, his face draining of color. A soul king with 5 10,000-year rings. It can't be, he whispered, voice trembling with disbelief. How could Cheng Xiao possibly have reached such a level? All 14 combatants stood on the great soul fighting stage, their own soul rings gleaming as they watched in stunned silence. The spectators in the stands erupted in shouts, but every eye was fixed on the lone figure shrouded in black mist. For a moment, the entire arena fell still. At the VIP table, Emperor Shui leapt to his feet, his gaze flickering rapidly between the rings and Cheng Xiao's unflinching stance. A sharp, disbelieving breath escaped him. Every teenage Soul King has at most 4 10,000-year rings. How is this possible? Platinum Bishop Salazar had been watching the competition with narrowed eyes, but the moment Cheng Xiao appeared, they flew open in shock. Unlike the ever-composed Emperor Shuiye, Salazar's knuckles dug into his seat as he struggled to remain still. Emperor Shuiye's own gaze flickered as he turned to Ning Fengji. Master Ning, the Emperor said, his voice calm but probing, I take it the team you favor most is 7-Star Academy, yes? Ning Fengji's heart skipped a beat. For a moment he was shaken by Tang San's astonishing 4th 10,000-year soul ring, but Cheng Xiao's revelation was even more earth-shattering. 14 years old, already a soul king, and boasting 5 10,000-year soul rings that placed him well beyond level 50, it defied every limit Ning had ever known. Gathering himself, he forced a smile and inclined his head. That is correct, Your Majesty, he said, his tone steady despite the storm inside him. Meanwhile, in the viewing box reserved for Shrek Academy, the team watched with bated breath, each member's eyes glued to the arena below as the contest and its unexpected revelations continued to unfold. Impossible! How can someone at the Soul King level have 5 spirit rings, each 10,000 years old? Master Riluo rubbed his eyes, hoping to banish the sight, but the soft clang of Cheng Xiao's rings circling his waist left no doubt. In the arena, every student from Shrek Academy stared in stunned silence. When those ancient rings came into view, their pupils constricted in shock. None were more astonished than Tang San. He gaped at the 5 10,000-year rings, his legs threatening to buckle. All his life, he'd prided himself on being the continent's only prodigy capable of awakening a 10,000-year spirit ring, and yet here stood someone with not 1, but 5 such rings. To make matters worse, Cheng Xiao's spirit power registered more than 10 levels above his own. Could this challenger even be human? It felt as though a true monster had just stepped into the arena. Chapter 184, 1 versus 7 Tang San, and the others were still reeling in disbelief when the rest of the 7-Star Academy contestants finally made their move. Yu Tianheng and Ning Rongrong, standing just behind Cheng Xiao, simultaneously manifested 4 spirit rings each, 2 yellow and 2 purple, while the Shi twins and Yu Feng, in the next rank, echoed that exact configuration. Their combined auras surged outward, filling the arena with a palpable pressure. Even Qian Renshui, positioned at the end of their formation, was momentarily taken aback by Cheng Xiao's quintet of 10,000-year rings. But she quickly recovered, calling forth her own spirit ring in a brilliant flash. In that instant, Shrek Academy's match against 7-Star Academy transformed from what had seemed a mere circus into something far more formidable. Tang San's newly acquired 4th ring shone brilliantly, no doubt, but it was eclipsed by Cheng Xiao's 5 ancient rings blazing like 5 suns. And Qian Renshui, fresh from her promotion to Spirit Head Academy, revealed depths of power nobody had anticipated. They had promised to conceal their strength in the preliminaries. Yet here they were, unleashing their full might. Shrek Academy suddenly realized that this was no simple skirmish. It had become a battle against 7 elite spirit masters at their peak. Damn, 2 Soul Kings and 5 Soul Lords. What chance does Shrek Academy have? The audience erupted into shouts and gasps. Many spectators sprang to their feet, eyes wide in disbelief. Don't even joke about Shrek. With that lineup, which other school could possibly match them? Look, the blonde beauty from 7-Star Academy is stepping forward. Hiss! Is she really going to take on all 7 opponents alone? That's absurd. Shouldn't it be the boy with 5 10,000-year soul rings in that spot? On the battlefield of souls, Cheng Xiao and Tang San locked eyes. A spark passed between them, and a hush fell over the arena. Dai Mubai, Shrek Academy's chief fighter, stared grimly at their opponent's soul ring configuration. He ground his teeth. Damn it, how are we supposed to beat that? Outside the arena, Dean Flanders of Shrek Academy watched with an ashen face. His nails bit into his palms as he stared at the unfolding challenge, utterly stunned. Cheng Xiao turned back to his teammates and offered them a confident smile. All right, everyone, leave this to me. With that, he stepped forward into the ring. In the very next moment, darkness enveloped the entire arena. The fighters from 7-Star Academy staggered back several paces the instant Cheng Xiao's voice cut through the arena. In a flash of black mist, she surged forward like a released arrow, so swift that even the spectators beyond the King's Domain Veil couldn't follow her motion. Tang San snapped out of his daze the moment the domain manifested. Change of plan. Everyone, gang up on Cheng Xiao, he barked. The rest of the Shrek 7 devils rallied at once, fanning out to encircle her. Tang San knew how formidable Cheng Xiao was. No single one of them could stand against her in a straight duel. Their only hope lay in overwhelming her with combined force. If she dismantled them one by one, Shrek Academy would be finished. But almost immediately Tang San felt it. His speed, his strength, every attribute had sharply declined. Alarm surged through him, but there was no time to hesitate. Dai Mubai charged first, his muscles bulging as he barreled toward Cheng Xiao, Tai Long at his side and Jing Ling racing in close support. To their shock, every step felt like wading through thick tar, each strike sluggish, each movement hindered. Even as they closed the distance, they sensed that something in this battle had shifted against them. The contest had only just begun, and already their greatest advantage was slipping away. Tang San unleashed a roar like a wild tiger, and at once the 4 soul rings on his arm flared to life. Transparent claws sprouted from his spectral paws, tearing at the air. All around him, streaks of bluesil, grass laced with white light silently erupted from the ground. Since breaking through into the Soul Master realm, Tang San's spirit power had swelled, allowing him to sprout more of his signature grass than ever before. He raised his palm, and a pulse of azure energy shimmered across his skin. Instantly, the grass surged outward like a living tide, swallowing every inch of the battlefield before them. At the same moment, 6 thick blades of grass slithered toward his companions. Dai Mubai, Oscar, Ma Hongjin, Ning Rongrong, Juju King, and Xiao Wu, coiling around their waists with gentle precision. Under the suppressing embrace of the blue-silver grass, the 7 disciples of Shrek Academy became one harmonious unit, with Tang San stationed firmly at its heart. Juju Qing and Xiao Wu melted into the shadows of the formation, disappearing so completely that only their faint presences remained. Yet even in stealth, they were not safe. Within the Monarch tier, Cheng Xiao perceived every subtle shift. Cold and motionless, Cheng Xiao met the assault head-on. His eyes blazed with icy determination, but each movement sapped his rapidly dwindling spirit power. He knew he had to finish this duel, now. Cheng Xiao, Daimubai roared, his voice echoing like thunder. Prepare to meet your end. He wasted no time. First, he tapped into his third soul skill, White Tiger Vajra transformation, and golden stripes flared across his body. Then, with a thunderous roar, he unleashed his fourth soul skill, White Tiger Meteor Shower. Dozens of fist-sized spheres of searing light erupted from him, each one homing in on Cheng Xiao like a miniature comet. At the same moment, Tai Long struck. Activating his fourth soul ring, raw power surged through him, and he morphed into a towering, enraged gorilla. He'd already identified Cheng Xiao as the boy responsible for driving their Li Yi clan from Tiando City. And now, with no restraint left, he swung a massive fist at him. Before Cheng Xiao could react further, two more figures darted in from the flanks. Zuzu King's netherworld stab skill catapulted her forward at blinding speed. She sliced through the air in a blur of afterimages, her blades aimed directly at the boy. Simultaneously, Xiao Wu activated her own third soul skill, teleportation, and materialized at Cheng Xiao's back in an instant. Now caught between the crackling golden tiger assault, Tai Long's brutal punch, and the twin strikes of Zuzu King and Xiao Wu, Cheng Xiao stood surrounded, every hope of escape breathing its last. Cheng Xiao deliberately struck at the empty air just behind Dai Mubai, precise but purely a feint. She had no intention of fighting at full strength. Since Tang Hao wouldn't let her leave, she might as well put on a show. If she lost, especially when her opponent was the one she'd been daydreaming about. With a roar, Dai Mubai unleashed his fourth soul skill, White Tiger Meteor Shower. The attack screamed across the arena, gouging deep trenches into the spirit battle platform before crashing into the spot where Cheng Xiao had stood. A thunderous explosion scattered gravel in every direction and filled the air with choking dust. When the debris settled, only a smoking crater marked the impact. Cheng Xiao's figure had vanished. The destructive power of the White Tiger Meteor Shower was unrivaled. Even a Soul King-level master would find it nearly impossible to block head-on. Got you, Dai Mubai called triumphantly, his eyes alight with excitement as he realized Cheng Xiao hadn't even attempted to dodge. Tang Sun hung back at the rear of the Shrek team, his brow furrowing. Cheng Xiao clearly wasn't subdued yet. In the very next instant, a dark figure burst forth from the swirling black smoke, his jet-black armor the very reason they'd failed to contain him before. Fourth soul skill, Silver Cage, Tang San called out. Dark energy flared around him as he tapped the power of his 10,000-year soul ring. Without warning, more than 100 strands of blue-silver grass erupted from the earth. Tui, sting upward until they wove together into a glowing white prison around Cheng Xiao. Since absorbing the 10,000-year ring, Tang San's fourth soul skill had transformed into a potent crowd control technique capable of summoning 7 such cages at once. To avoid hampering his own allies, he released only one, secure in the knowledge that, so long as Cheng Xiao remained trapped, the Shrek team would finally have the opening they needed to defeat him. Chapter 185, King, Please Show Mercy. Blue-silver grass? I can use that too. Cheng Xiao's eyes flickered as the verdant tendrils lunged at him. In that instant, Ah Yin's power stirred within his mind. A single leaf of the rare black and blue emperor grass coiled around Cheng Xiao's fingertips, and with a swift motion, Tang San's silver cage, woven from his blue-silver grass, shattered into motes of light. Tang San staggered back, disbelief etched on his face. My fourth soul skill, refined over 10,000 years, just broke. His pupils narrowed in shock. Master said that once I absorbed the light attribute soul ring, my blue-silver grass would suppress Cheng Xiao's dark attribute. So why have I completely lost control of it? He stared blankly at the ruined cage, doubts flooding his mind. Across the clearing, Dai Mubai's expression darkened as he glared at Cheng Xiao, his displeasure palpable. Yet beneath his icy glare, a deeper fear began to coil in his heart. Hundreds of blades of blue-silver grass erupted from the arena floor in an instant, twisting themselves into sharpened spears that hurtled toward Dai Mubai. Before he could even raise his guard, One of those living shafts impaled his shoulder, pinning him helplessly to the spirit fighting stage. Dozens more vines snaked around his arms and legs, binding him tightly to the ground. Cheng Xiao didn't hesitate for a second. He drew his thigh back in a powerful arc and then drove it straight down. A low, sickening crack echoed through the arena. Ah! Dai Mubai, trapped in the grass prison, couldn't dodge. With a second, bone-crushing impact, his chest caved in and blood spurted from his mouth. He let out a final, agonized cry before collapsing into unconsciousness. The instant his strength ebbed away, the blue-silver grass withered and fell away. Seizing the moment, Cheng Xiao stood tall, unquestionably the true king in the king realm. He concentrated his blue-silver emperor's spirit into a single, gleaming spear and hurled it with fierce precision at Tai Long. The moment Cheng Xiao's attack connected, Tang Long knew what true power felt like, an unbearable fusion of piercing force and explosive impact. Before he could even raise his guard, a spear sliced through his shoulder, and he slipped into darkness. One by one, Jingling, Oscar, Zhu King, and Xiao Wu were flung off the stage. Apart from Dai Mubai, who took the hardest hit and now lay on the ground, body twitching, all of them escaped without a single scratch, utterly unable to fight back. Xiao Wu, of course, had volunteered to dive off early to distract Cheng Xiao. Once his foes were scattered, Cheng Xiao paused, clapped slowly, and then, with a mocking curl of his finger, beckoned to the dazed Tang San. His eyes gleamed with provocation. Tang San surveyed his fallen friends. Jingling and the others sprawled helplessly, Dai Mubai writhing in pain, and felt a cold flame kindle in his chest. "Cheng Xiao," he hissed, voice low and deadly, "you've struck my teammates for the last time." In an instant, murderous intent exploded from him like an avalanche. The very air around Tang San froze, his eyes blazed blood red. From his back, 8 razor-sharp spider spears unfurled, each one bristling with lethal promise. Tang San tore forward like a whirlwind, closing the distance to Cheng Xiao in an instant. She regarded him coolly, amusement flickering in her eyes. "If you think you can catch me, go on, try." Rage cracked through Tang San's calm. He activated the Tang Sec's forbidden technique, his form collapsing into a black shadow that lunged at Cheng Xiao with terrifying speed. In the next heartbeat, he reappeared at her side, eyes blazing. Gritting his teeth, he unleashed his soul power into both palms and summoned dozens of writhing strands of blue-silver grass. The vines shot out, ensnaring Cheng Xiao's arms and torso before tightening like living chains. With Cheng Xiao momentarily bound, Tang San's jade-white fists rattled her chest in a relentless barrage of blows. Each strike was driven by arse of resentment. "Cheng Xiao, today, we settle our score," his voice thundered, brimming with lethal intent. As his momentum peaked, a radiant trident mark blossomed on Tang San's forehead, an unmistakable sign of the sea god's legacy. Without hesitation, he hurled himself into one final, earth-shaking punch aimed squarely at Cheng Xiao's sternum. Cheng Xiao reeled under the force, eyes widening at the glowing emblem now etched on his brow. She staggered back, breath caught in her throat. "A trident mark?" she murmured. But by the storyline, he shouldn't have awakened the sea god inheritance yet. Though caught off guard by Tang San's fierce assault, Cheng Xiao's expression stayed calm. Soul energy surged through him, and instantly, shadow power condensed around his right fist. With a thunderous boom, his punch met Tang San's. Force rippled outward like widening rings across a pond. The clash lasted only an instant, yet it was enough. Tang San staggered, horror dawning in his eyes as he realized his martial spirit, the blue-silver grass, had slipped from his control once more. What's happening? Why is my blue-silver grass obeying you?" Tang San's voice cracked with panic. Suddenly, a searing pain shot up his arm with a sickening snap. He stumbled back, face paling, and then spat a mouthful of blood. His complexion flickered between ashen and flushed. He couldn't fathom how Cheng Xiao's strength had grown so rapidly, or why his prized martial spirit now bowed only to Cheng Xiao. Leaning in, Cheng Xiao's lips curved into a faint, cool smile. "So," he murmured, "how does it feel?" Cheng Xiao hovered in midair, the coils of the blue-silver emperor vanishing from his arm as he relaxed into a casual stance. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "So, do you feel the gap between us now?" he asked. "I thought you'd have to swallow a light attribute spirit ring just to hold me back." He let the words hang in the tense air before continuing. Too bad your teacher's precious ring proved useless against me. You'd better thank your mother for saving you today, Tang San. She might not be there next time. Tang San's body trembled. His eyes shot up to meet Cheng Xiao's, disbelief and fury warring in his chest. His voice came out hoarse. Cheng Xiao, who are you to drag my mother into this? Unfazed, Cheng Xiao crossed his arms. Seriously, you're only standing there because your spirit level is higher than mine. Put us on equal ground, then let's see who comes out on top. Tang San's jaw clenched. A flash of crimson ignited in his eyes. You really have no sense of decency. Cheng Xiao shook his head with mock regret. Honestly, you're something else. If it weren't for Ah Yin's plea, I'd have shot you dead already. A bitter laugh escaped Tang San's lips. He staggered to his feet, every muscle screaming in protest, yet his gaze blazed brighter than before. You think I, Tang San, have no way out? He said, voice steady now. I'm not finished yet. A sudden burst of soul power sent Tang San's shirt dissolving into a swirl of ethereal butterflies. At the same time, the 8 spider spears appeared in his hands, and he advanced on Cheng Xiao in a series of unpredictable, gliding steps. Cheng Xiao raised an eyebrow. That old trick again? With barely a motion, he extended his palm and unleashed his signature move, the ruler's palm. An invisible force slammed into Tang San, hurling him across the arena. He crashed to the ground in a cloud of dust. Before Tang San could scramble to his feet, Ah Yin slipped quietly beside Cheng Xiao. Kneeling, she placed her hands together and gazed up at him with pleading eyes. Your Majesty, she said softly, please show him mercy. May I speak with him? Cheng Xiao sighed, then waved a hand. You have 30 seconds. Once the king's domain lifts, everyone outside will see exactly what happens in here. Thank you, Your Majesty. Relief flooded Ah Yin's face. She rose and dashed toward Tang San, her skirts brushing the arena floor. Kneeling by his side, she reached out to help him to his feet. Chapter 186, The Angry King. Xiao San, are you all right? Ah Yin's voice trembled as she scrambled to Tang San's side. With a pained look, she dropped to one knee and reached out to help him up. But before her fingers could make contact, Tang San drove his 8 spider lances into the ground beneath him. In an instant, the segmented shafts bent and snapped outward, unleashing a catapult-like force that shot his body skyward. Xiao San! Ah Yin gasped, her hand frozen in midair. She watched in stunned horror as he tore himself free, no sign of the gentle boy she once knew. Tang San hovered for a heartbeat, then turned his face from her. His eyes were glazed with fury. My mother is dead, he spat, voice cold and unyielding. Don't you dare lie to me. Ah Yin recoiled as though struck, her heart fracturing at the accusation. She opened her mouth to protest, but he was already gone, the 8 spider lances withdrawing and launching him forward in a blur of motion. Before she could gather her thoughts, Tang San was racing toward Cheng Xiao at a speed that left a crackling trail in the air. Looking for death? Cheng Xiao called out, a cruel smile lifting one corner of his mouth. His eyes gleamed with triumph, and he readied his stance as if the duel had already begun. High above the battlefield, Tang San's figure cut a jagged arc against the sky, a young man transformed by rage, hurt, and unshakable resolve. Down below, Ah Yin could only watch, tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks as the 2 adversaries prepared to clash. Tang San hung in midair as the first 3 spirit rings on his right arm glowed in succession. At his command, the blue-silver grass wriggled fiercely, its tendrils springing to life, weaving together to ensnare his opponent. Under Tang San's full force, the dense, whip-like vines shot toward Cheng Xiao, coiling around him in an instant, only to slacken and fall away just as quickly. Before Tang San could recover, Cheng Xiao's form dissolved into a shadowy afterimage. In the next heartbeat, he materialized right before Tang San and unleashed a crushing punch to his nose. The sound of bone snapping echoed like a whip crack, and Tang San was sent hurtling backward, limbs flailing like a kite with its string cut. He hadn't even had time to land when Cheng Xiao reappeared beneath him. A rising dragon fist slammed into Tang San's torso, sending him soaring skyward once more. Like lightning incarnate, Cheng Xiao followed up with a relentless barrage of fists and kicks, each strike brimming with lethal intent. Even the shadow soldiers lurking at the edges of the clearing felt the raw, murderous will radiating off their king. Their hearts thudded in their chests as they watched Tang San's struggle against Cheng Xiao's merciless assault, aware that their monarch fought with nothing less than the absolute determination to defeat his foe. What happened to the king dragon? Why did that murderous aura just erupt? It was Ah Yin, one shadowed voice replied. She came before him moments ago, begging to see her firstborn, but before she could even speak, her own son struck her down. As the two spoke in hushed tones, Tang San's broken body plummeted from the air and crashed into the arena floor. A grotesque sight met every eye. His facial bones were nearly shattered, his torso was twisted at an unnatural angle, and the 8 spider-like spears arcing from his back hung bent and mangled. He lay there, utterly mute. Cheng Xiao, cold and unflinching, looked down at him, then stamped the ground. Cracks spider-webbed outward in the stone, and with a single, powerful kick she shattered the invisible barrier of the king dragon's domain. In that instant, the massive dome above the fighting stage collapsed, revealing the full horror of the duel to the spectators. A collective gasp rose from the stands. "By the gods, that's brutal," someone exclaimed. "No wonder they'd wanted to keep this hidden. The violence is sickening." "They say once you absorb a soul bone, it becomes part of you," another wisp, arid, pale with shock. "If that's true, how much agony must he be in right now?" The audience fell silent, their hearts pounding, as they took in the bloodied, battered form of Tang San, and the ruthless power Cheng wielded so effortlessly. No wonder he'd secured 5 10,000-year soul rings so easily. Just the preliminaries had already produced a bloody, shocking spectacle. If this was only the warm-up, how brutal would the finals be? Once the king's domain dissipated, the stands exploded in debate. On Shrek's side, Master Tan paced to the edge of his seat, bellowing, "Xiao San!" He leapt from the stands and sprinted toward Tang San's corner. When he reached his disciple, Master Tan froze. Tang San lay collapsed on the arena floor, his face a grotesque ruin, his eyes swollen shut, facial bones dislocated. A slick pool of crimson seeped from deep gashes across his back. 6 of his 8 spider spears lay shattered at his side. The remaining 2 were grotesquely impaled in his thighs. Seething with rage, the master whirled to the referee. "Referee! Referee! I demand a ruling!" he thundered. "This isn't a duel. It's attempted murder. 7-Star Academy has blatantly broken the competition rules. I want them to lose. Give them a loss." The roar from the Shrek Academy master finally snapped the referee out of his stupor. Moments earlier, the king's domain had clouded his senses. He'd been desperately trying to figure out how to explain what had just happened. Now, though, what explanation could possibly suffice? This was supposed to be a friendly collegiate competition. Even among spirit masters, such a one-sided, brutal outcome was almost unheard of. Were these not still teenage students? A heavy silence settled over the entire Tiando Grand Soul arena. Nobody could believe that Cheng Xiao had single-handedly defeated all 7 members of the Shrek 7 Devils, let alone in such a merciless fashion. No one in the crowd had glimpsed the inside of the Duhun arena. All they saw was the final, devastating tableau. On the arena floor, only the Shrek team's leader and a handful of core members lay in critical condition. Hearing their master's furious roar, the referee finally lifted his gaze toward the VIP stands. Tang San's injuries were plainly severe, and without explicit authorization, he dared not rule on the match's outcome. With tension crackling through the air, the referee raised his hand. All eyes turned to the VIP boxes, waiting for the signal that would decide the fate of these young warriors. "What are you complaining about?" The referee's voice rang out sharply. In the VIP stands, Douluo Bo rose to his feet, eyes narrowing as a faint green glow flickered within them. "Douluo Bo," the referee continued, his tone cold with accusation, "your academy isn't competing, they're killing people. The rules clearly forbid injuring teammates. Have you forgotten that?" Douluo Bo's lips curled into a sneer, poised to retort, when a quiet voice suddenly rose above the uproar. "Referee," Cheng Xiao called, his voice calm, yet carrying the weight of his spirit power so that every spectator could hear. "I have one question. Are the students from Shrek Academy permanently injured or dead?" The arena fell silent. The referee stared at the 7 figures lying motionless on the ground opposite them. He frowned, taking in the scene. Aside from Tang San, Dai Mubai and Tai Long, each seriously wounded but far from mortally so. The other four showed no visible injuries. None appeared disabled, and certainly none had died. With reluctance, the referee met Cheng Xiao's steady gaze. "They're not dead," he admitted, "and although 3 are badly hurt, none will be permanently disabled once they receive proper treatment." A ripple of relief swept through the crowd as the truth spread. Dugubo's expression darkened, but there was no arguing with the facts laid bare before them all. Cheng Xiao's shout cut through the tension like a blade. "You!" The headmaster's face flushed crimson at the accusation. He opened his mouth to back, but Flanders was already at his side, gently but firmly gripping his arm. "Enough," Flanders murmured. He knew that if the headmaster pressed the matter further, Shrek Academy would almost certainly be disqualified from the all-continent elite Soul Master competition. Whatever had happened on the arena floor could, and would, be sorted out later, in private. In the VIP box, Emperor Shuye watched the exchange with thinly veiled amusement. His usually impassive eyes narrowed into slits, the corners lifting in a subtle, satisfied smile. He let out a soft, measured chuckle before turning his attention to the field. With all eyes on him, the Emperor rose and announced in a clear, resonant voice, "By my decree, 7-Star Academy claims victory in this match." Chapter 187, Ning Fengji's Doubts. The moment Emperor Shuye pronounced the match over, the entire arena erupted. Excited chatter, skeptical murmurs, and awed gasps swept through the stands, most of all at the sight of 5 soul rings, each aged 10,000 years. Shrek Academy had long enjoyed a formidable reputation, yet its champions were dispatched by a single Soul King in mere minutes. The result was nothing short of stunning. Spectators leaped to their feet, waving banners and cheering until the Fighting Soul Arena shook with their fervor. Emperor Shuye's swift ruling wasn't merely a matter of protocol, it was a show of favoritism. The 7-Star Academy had only just been founded under the patronage of Crown Prince Shui Qinghe, and Dugubo was practically royalty's guest. Even if rumors of foul play surfaced, the Emperor would have turned a blind eye, though strictly speaking, no rules had actually been broken. Amid the jubilation, veteran instructor Ning Fengji watched in silence, his brow furrowed. The flawless performance, the breathtaking power of those ancient soul rings, it all felt too perfect. A nagging doubt stirred in his mind. Had they truly won by strength alone, or was there something darker hidden beneath that radiant victory? In accordance with the contest rules, this clash counted only as a minor tragedy. No one had been seriously injured. No sooner had Emperor Shuye finished speaking than Ning Fengji rose to his feet. He lifted a single hand, and a soft radiance gathered above his palm. There hovered the 7-treasure glazed pagoda, its 7 soul rings spinning in perfect harmony. "By the famed 7 treasures, unleash the 6-path healing," Ning Fengji intoned. The little pagoda swirled faster, then drifted upward, growing as it rose until it stood over 10 meters tall in midair. Instantly, the entire spirit arena burst into a kaleidoscope of colors as 7 faint halos shot outward from the towering relic. Standing guard at Ning Fengji's side was Chen Xin, the sword Douluo. Though he held back his martial spirit, his presence alone radiated a lethal intensity that kept everyone at bay. Beneath the pagoda's glow, a warm, iridescent light washed over the Shrek team. Each pulse of healing energy shimmered with otherworldly brilliance, knitting wounds and restoring vitality in a soothing wave that left onlookers breathless. Tang San's wound was sealing at a breathtaking pace. The vivid red blood had stopped flowing, and all 8 twisted spider's tooth spears had fully fused into his flesh. Because Tang San had a cooperative arrangement with Ning Fengji, and since Ning Fengji was a disciple of the Haochen sect, after all, the 3 great sects shared the same lineage, the chief elder of the 7 Treasures Glazed Lotus sect had felt obliged to appear in person. More importantly, Tang San's injuries had been so severe that unleashing his 6th soul skill to heal him was nothing short of a life-saving act. If Tang San had died, who would Ning Fengji have commissioned to forge hidden weapons? Cheers erupted through the arena like a mountain torrent. Cheng Xiao reined in his cold glare, turned, and offered an apologetic smile to the spectators behind him. Then he lifted his eyes toward the stands of the 7-Star Academy, where Ye Lingling caught his gaze. They exchanged warm smiles. "My friend Cheng Xiao," Ye Lingling called down, her voice carrying across the court. "Congratulations on winning your opening match in the 7-Star Academy tournament." Ning Fengji strode over with a bright smile, fixing Cheng Xiao with an approving look. "I don't think it'll be long before 7-Star Academy's name spreads across the entire continent." Cheng Xiao shook his head with a modest smile. "You're overpraising me. It's just luck." "Luck?" Ning Fengji laughed softly. "You've already broken into the Soul King realm at your age, and have 5 10,000-year spirit rings to show for it. That kind of achievement is practically unheard of on Douluo Continent." He casually shifted his gaze to the Sword Douluo standing beside him, Jian Douluo Chen Xin, whose expression remained calm but alert. "Yet even that pales beside a soul skill capable of forging spirit rings from nothing," Ning Fengji added, a teasing glint in his eye. "Now that, Cheng Xiao, truly boggles the mind." At the mention of a spirit ring simulation skill, Chen Xin's eyebrow lifted ever so slightly before he masked his reaction. Ning Fengji turned back to Cheng Xiao, folding his arms. "So tell me, do you really believe such a soul skill exists? Or are you simply pulling my leg?" "Master Ning, I'm not kidding. This is just my simulated soul skill. If you don't believe me, take a look." At her command, the 5 10,000-year soul rings before Ning Fengji gradually shifted color, first glimmering yellow, then deep purple, and finally jet black. Ning Fengji's eyes widened in astonishment. He had never seen a soul master capable of changing the hues of soul rings like this. "It really can simulate different soul rings," he murmured in disbelief. Cheng Xiao gave a slight nod and a confident smile. "Indeed, Master Ning, Senior Jian Douluo, I have other matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave. I look forward to our next meeting." She bowed respectfully, cast a casual glance at Tang San and the others being led off the spirit stage, then strode toward the 7-Star Academy's lounge. "Uncle Jian, shall we follow?" Ning Fengji turned to Jian Douluo as Cheng Xiao disappeared from view. With that, the two of them stepped down from the stage and made their way toward the lounge as well. Just as Ning Fengji and his companion stepped down from the spirit arena and began toward the VIP section, a familiar voice called out behind them. "Daddy!" Ning Rongrong came sprinting across the concourse and flung herself into his arms. "Rongrong, what are you doing here?" he murmured, gently ruffling her silky hair. She hugged him tighter, then pulled back and looked up at him with wide, pleading eyes. "Dad, why didn't you or Grandpa Jian come over to say hello to Cheng Xiao? Why aren't you paying attention to me?" Ning Fengji offered a patient smile. "The first round of preliminaries isn't over yet. I have to get back to watch the other colleges compete." Rongrong crossed her arms and pouted. "So now you're playing favorites? Are you going to cheat?" He chuckled, gently prying her arms open. "If they want to call me biased, let them talk. 7 Stars College will speak with its strength today. No favorites needed." With that, he kissed her forehead and turned back toward the arena. Rongrong watched him go, determination shining in her eyes. Their performance would prove more than any accusation ever could. "If they're still unconvinced, they're free to challenge us," Ning Fengji said, his tone calm. A faint smile curved Ning Fengji's lips as he watched his daughter. "Rongrong, don't get too proud of yourself. You only won today by standing on the shoulders of giants. Make friends with Cheng Xiao. With him by your side, you'll go even further." All right, I get it." Ning Rongrong chuckled and nodded. "I'll be heading back now. Dad, you must come to the arena after the match. I want you to meet my new classmates. They're all really nice to me." "I wouldn't miss it," he replied with a warm look. "After the game, your grandfather Jian and I will come together." As the girl skipped off, Ning Fengji turned to Jian Douluo. "Uncle Jian, how much trust are you putting in Cheng Xiao's claim?" Jian Douluo tapped his chin thoughtfully. 50%. Half of me believes it, half doubts it, but I can't shake the feeling that he actually possesses 5 10,000-year soul rings. 5 10,000-year soul rings. Ning Fengji exhaled and forced a bitter smile. That would make him a truly formidable opponent. Chapter 188, Tang Hao Attacks. Emperor Shuiye himself proclaimed the result of the duel. No matter how much the master protested, there was nothing he could do. The decision stood. Not far away in the audience, a burly, middle-aged man, draped in flowing black robes, watched with a stormy expression. His broad shoulders tensed as he observed Tang San slipping quietly back into the lounge. "There's something off about that kid," he muttered, narrowing his eyes. Without another word, he rose to his feet, cast a sweeping glance over the VIP section, and swept his sleeves in dismissal as he strode from the arena. That night, a silver moon hung low in the ink-dark sky, its pale light cloaking the world in a gauzy glow. In a single room at 7-Star Academy's dormitory, Cheng Xiao lay on his soft bed, one arm propped behind his head, staring up at the ceiling as thoughts whirled through his mind. Beside him, Yin sat on the edge of her own mattress, her fingers twisting in her lap. She watched Cheng Xiao with half-closed eyes, gathering her courage. When she finally met his gaze, her voice trembled. "Cheng Xiao, about earlier." But the words caught in her throat, and silence fell once more, broken only by the gentle hum of the night. After a long, tense pause, Cheng Xiao finally sat up and looked down at Yin with a teasing smile. "I'm not angry," he said. "So why are you trembling like that?" Yin's shoulders tightened, and she kept her eyes fixed on the floor. "Your Majesty, I know you say you're not upset, but I can still sense the anger in your aura." He laughed softly and let himself collapse back onto her lap, his head resting against her thighs. One hand reached up to stroke her cheek as he grinned. "Angry? Me? There's nothing to be angry about. Besides, as long as I'm alive, you're perfectly safe." She glanced up at him, unconvinced. He sat up again, his expression playful. "Even if you did perish, it's no big deal. A little soul power and I could reform you in an instant. Really, I'm not mad." Yin sighed, her doubt plain on her face. "I'm sorry, but I just can't believe that." With a mock-serious frown, Cheng Xiao ruffled her hair. "You've got to be more careful. Do you have any idea how much soul energy it takes to resurrect you? It's a colossal waste." He paused, noticing the guilt in her eyes, then softened. "All right, enough teasing. My neck's stiff from lying here anyway." She offered him a faint smile. Despite her nerves, she found herself relieved by the warmth in his laughter, and secretly a little grateful for the reminder that he would always bring her back. "Could you help me massage it?" Hearing those words, Yin's eyes lit up. "Sure." "Cheng Xiao," a sudden commanding voice boomed inside his mind. "If you value your life, get out of here now." Cheng Xiao froze. That familiar tone, delivered straight to his consciousness by soul power, sounded as if someone whispered in his ear. He glanced around the dim chamber, then stood and stepped off the bed. In a low voice he barked at the hidden guards. "Only Nash and Titan follow me. No one else moves." "Yes, Your Majesty." The shadow soldiers melted back into the darkness. "King, is that Tang Hao?" Yin murmured uncertainly, recognizing the powerful aura closing in. Cheng Xiao didn't spare her a glance. "Yes, it's him." With that, black light spiraled around his feet. In an instant, his form blurred and dissolved into shadow. He vanished from the room, racing toward the forest just beyond the palace walls. Alarmed, Yin sprang to her feet, ready to pursue him, only to find her limbs frozen, as if bound by invisible chains. Panic surged through her as she struggled against the unseen force keeping her rooted in place. Outside, the night wind whispered through the trees, carrying a promise of danger and the promise of answers that Yin feared she couldn't reach in time. A quiet voice echoed in her mind. "If you want to come, wait." Yin's heart clenched at Cheng Xiao's commanding tone. She glanced toward him, eye flickering across her features, but her concern was not for Tang Hao. Over time, her feelings for Tang Hao had quietly faded. Deep down, she found herself drawn to Cheng Xiao instead of to Tang Hao and his son. Meanwhile, in the forest clearing beyond the camp, Cheng Xiao descended lightly to the soft carpet of fallen leaves. His gaze, cold and unyielding, swept through the shadows as he searched for Tang Hao. Then he called out, his voice ringing through the trees. "Come out, Tang Hao. I know you're there." He made no further noise. Instead, he balled his hand into a fist, and in an instant a long sword, wreathed in black flames, materialized in his palm. With a fluid motion, he pointed it at a great oak on the edge of the clearing. The blade sparked, and a jet of inky fire streaked from its tip toward the tree. The impact echoed like a thunderclap. The oak's trunk splintered and buckled, and with a crash it fell backward. As branches and leaves shifted, a broad-shouldered man in a black robe stepped out from behind the fallen timber. He looked every bit as stern as the flames that had announced his presence. Cheng Xiao's dark eyes narrowed with thinly veiled contempt. He allowed himself a small, mocking smile as he addressed the newcomer. "So this is the famous Tang Hao? The kid couldn't handle it, so the old man has to swoop in himself?" Tang Hao, clad in black, sneered as he drew back his hood, revealing a face so relaxed it looked almost sleepy. "Ah, so you understand," he said, voice low and mocking, "that since you crushed the younger brother, as his elder, am bound to stand up for him." He fixed Cheng Xiao with a cold stare. "Tell me this, how dare you, a soul king barely over level 50, mouth off at a titled Douluo? Has Douluo been filling your head with nonsense?" Cheng Xiao fell silent, unprepared for such a barb. Then again, did it matter? Tang Hao cracked his neck, eager to teach this insolent challenger that some opponents demand a price. Before he could press the advantage, Cheng Xiao advanced in a single fluid step. Tang Hao's muscles tensed, but it was too late. Darkness swallowed his vision. When Tang Hao hit the ground, Cheng Xiao stood over him, expression unnervingly calm. "First you beat the younger brother," he said, voice quiet yet cutting. "Then you come for the elder. But after the elder, there's always someone older still. The Tang clan really has a taste for overstepping, don't you?" "Is it never-ending?" A dark glint sparked in Tang Hao's eyes. Sensing Tang Hao could strike at any moment, Cheng Xiao exhaled and unleashed the king's domain. In the blink of an eye, the colossal dragon Nash and the mighty Titan King emerged at his side. "I showed mercy for the sake of our former classmates," Cheng Xiao said, his voice steady. If it had been anyone else, they wouldn't be alive now. In truth, Cheng Xiao hadn't wanted to fight Tang Hao, but a knife pressed to his throat left him no choice. If he hadn't defended himself, he'd be stabbed. And Cheng Xiao wasn't worried about the outcome. Nash's power was not limited by Cheng Xiao's personal strength. The dragon could match, even surpass Tang Hao's might. Nash was Cheng Xiao's hidden ace, known only to himself and Douluo. The few who did know had already been conscripted as shadow soldiers, bound to his will. Tang Hao's lips curved into a mocking smile as he studied the dragon and the Titan. "So your great hope is a shadow soul beast?" he jeered. He hadn't recognized Titan at first. Shadow Soldier's creatures were masters of concealment, but now the Titan King stood unmistakably before him, massive and imposing. A tense silence fell, broken only by the low rumble of the dragon's breath. Both men stood ready, the memory of old classes and past alliances overshadowed by this deadly standoff. The battlefield had shifted, no longer a simple rivalry, but a clash between hidden powers and unspoken pasts. And as Nash coiled its immense body and Titan flexed its stone-hard fists, one thing was certain. This fight would test the true limits of yet strength and mercy alike. Cheng Xiao let a faint smile curl at the corner of his lips. "How Douluo thinks my soldiers are weak? Then let's put them to the test." In the next instant, he dissolved into a blur of motion and reappeared beside Tang Hao, who now gripped a colossal Haochen hammer in both hands. Cheng Xiao nodded toward the weapon. "Go on, strike us if you dare." Author's note. Last night I pulled an all-nighter at my friend's urging and then slept for almost a full day. As a result, today's update is only 4,000 words. Thanks for your patience. Chapter 189. This boy is terrifying. He can't be allowed to stay. Killing God Realm. Activate. Tang Hao's pupils constricted, turning a menacing shade of blood red as a frigid, deathly aura swept outward from his body. It wasn't an explosive force, but its sheer chill made Cheng Xiao feel as though he'd been lowered into an underground ice chamber, every nerve ending ablaze with cold. Still, Cheng Xiao refused to yield. He met Tang Hao's gaze head-on, his eyes flashing violet, and unleashed a titanic wave of killing intent. The two auras crashed together, purple light against inky black, with a sound like shattering ice. For a heartbeat, Tang Hao felt an unfamiliar sting of fear. Luckily, his mastery of the Death God realm was enough to blunt the impact before Cheng Xiao's onslaught could break through. Breathing hard, Tang Hao stared back, a mixture of dread and grudging respect flickering in his eyes. He had never imagined that his Death God realm could be so utterly matched, perhaps even outstripped, by the power of a Soul King. Nash's murderous aura flared, and he drew the heat of his breath back into his maw. In the next instant, a torrent of flame, pure, searing dragonfire erupted toward Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao's eyes flashed. What raw power! No wonder he's a grand dragon. With a swift pivot and a strong push off the ground, he slid out of the fire's path just in time. Come on, hit me! Cheng Xiao bellowed. His silhouette blurred, then reformed high above Nash's massive head. Clutching the clear sky hammer, he plunged downward with all his strength. But Nash was lightning fast. Before the hammer could make contact, an ice-blue claw shot up, intercepting the blow. Frost blossomed across the hammer's surface the instant claw met metal. With a thunderous crack, Nash whipped the claw upward, flinging the hammer from Cheng Xiao's grasp. Seeing his opportunity, the red dragon claw slammed back toward Cheng Xiao, talons outstretched and razor-sharp, eager to rend flesh from bone. The inferno blasted Cheng Xiao backward nearly 30 meters, singeing his clothes and searing his lungs. He spat out a curse. Titled Douluo? You're not even worthy of the name. The glow on the dragon Nash's claws dimmed, and he met Cheng Xiao's gaze with cool indifference as the cultivator fought to reclaim his frozen Haotian hammer. Damn it! Cheng Xiao gritted out in his mind. I can't channel more than 70% of my strength. Those two blasted soul beasts are holding me back. Summoning every scrap of spirit power he had left, Cheng Xiao thrust out his palm. In an instant, the clear sky hammer flew back into his grip. But as soon as his fingers closed around the haft, a piercing chill shot through his limbs, locking half his body in place. He stared in disbelief at the massive dragon before him. Never had he imagined Cheng Xiao's summoned beast possessed such a devious ability. If this is all you've got, Nash rumbled, his voice like drifting ice, then you might as well embrace your death. No sooner had the words left his muzzle than torrents of energy, one brilliant ice blue, the other blazing crimson, erupted from Nash's scaled hide. The two opposing powers collided in midair, flooding the clearing with a bone-shaking roar. In that instant, Nash's presence shattered the benchmark of a mere titled Douluo, exuding a terrifying aura that pressed down on them all. Cheng Xiao flinched under the immense, oppressive aura bearing down on him, his face twisted in disbelief. An opponent far stronger than himself would shudder under this pressure. Clearly, the raw power of this soul beast exceeded his own. Yet despite the primeval dragon Nash's terrifying might, Cheng Xiao refused to concede. He was a Haotian Douluo, the sect's most celebrated disciple and master of the legendary clear sky hammer. How could he lose to a soul beast, however formidable, even one summoned by a soul king? We'll see who wins, he snarled. In an instant, jet-black chi erupted from his body like a demon's ink, coalescing into a towering pillar of darkness. Leaping sky, ward, Cheng Xiao hoisted his massive clear sky hammer above his head. With a roar, he brought it crashing down. The ground shuddered and split, sending stones and dust sprawling in every direction. From the ravine his blow carved, a surge of inky energy tore forward, streaking toward the dragon Nash and gouging the earth even deeper in its path. Nash, the towering dragon, refused to yield. As Cheng Xiao's hammer strike bore down, the beast's massive arms glowed alternately with icy blue and crimson fire. Dragon breath energy crackled in Nash's throat, then blasted forth in a searing beam of ice and flame aimed straight at Cheng Xiao's Haotian hammer. Dark energy swirled around the weapon, and the forest trembled with each thunderous impact. Boom, boom, boom! The beam and the hammer's black aura collided in a series of deafening explosions. Shockwaves radiated outward, shredding ancient oaks and cleaving trunks in two. Trees tumbled like matchsticks, carpeting the clearing in splintered wood. Feeling the blow, Cheng Xiao gritted his teeth. With a roar, he leapt to his feet and swung the Haotian hammer in a flash of motion, unleashing the clear sky sect's most fearsome art, the random splitting wind hammer technique. Two blurred shadows spun through the air as the colossal hammer descended. Nash countered with a single claw, thick, frost-coated, and bristling with jagged ice crystals. The hammer struck talon against talon, sending crystalline shards flying in every direction. Fine cracks webbed across the dragon's icy armor, and delicate frost flowers burst outward where hammer met claw. You're not that impressive, Nash the giant dragon sneered, unleashing a beam of crimson light that slammed Cheng Xiao through the air before he could react. If Cheng Xiao hadn't instinctively raised his arm to block the onslaught of the clear sky hammer, he'd have been completely unprepared. With Nash's scale defense at its current height, the only way through would have been a ring explosion, and those shattering ice crystals earlier had been nothing but a clever ruse. Cheng Xiao glared down at the scorched imprint across his chest, his expression darkening. Fortunately, his soul power had been reinforcing his body. Otherwise, that blow would have pierced his flesh. His chaotic cloak hammer method relied entirely on raw force, yet Nash had somehow anticipated it, violently disrupted the technique, and redirected its power back at him. In terms of both intellect and combat skill, this dragon far outclassed even the two soul beasts of the Stardew Great Forest, each more than 100,000 years old. At least, that was the hard truth Cheng Xiao now faced. Previously, deep within the Stardew Great Forest, Cheng Xiao had risked everything to free Xiao Wu, and paid the price. The sky-blue bull python's venomous strike shattered his defenses, reawakening old wounds and hidden ailments all at once. As he lay battered and bleeding, Cheng Xiao stood over him, heart pounding. This boy's power, it's too terrifying, Cheng Xiao thought, his gaze hardening. If he's allowed to grow any stronger, he could threaten the entire continent. In that moment, he mentally passed a death sentence on Cheng Xiao. Suppressing his doubts, Cheng Xiao drew a slow, steady breath. His eyes snapped open, brilliant scarlet, and he unleashed his killing god field. A violent aura of bloodlust and madness surged from his body, tearing at the very air. "Go to hell!" he roared, voice echoing like thunder. Seventh soul skill, Hao Qin's true body. With those words, Cheng Xiao's cultivation soared upward like a rocket. His chest swelled with power, his blood-red eyes blazing with unholy light. From a distance, he resembled a vengeful deity, hulking, ferocious, and utterly merciless. Fear and awe rippled through the forest as Cheng Xiao stood transformed, the living embodiment of slaughter. End of chapter. Chapter 190. The Dragon Clan's Most Malevolent Power. Blood-red energy coiled around Cheng Xiao's body as the gale-force winds whipped up by his relentless swings of the clear sky hammer made the very air tremble. A fierce gleam ignited in his eyes. Ignoring the biting frost that numbed his fingers, he roared, tightened his grip on the massive weapon, and charged. Seconds later, he slammed head-on into a towering figure, swathed in icy blue and crimson, Dragon Nash. The moment their weapons collided, a cruel smile curved across Nash's lips. In an instant, he unleashed the full might of his draconic power. Bang! Cheng Xiao, cloaked in chaotic energy, was blasted backward as if struck by an avalanche. His clear sky hammer tore from his hands and hurtled into the ground, hammering itself into the earth with deafening force. From that point of impact, ripples of energy, born of both the hammer's power and Cheng Xiao's liberation technique, radiated outward in ever-widening circles. Nash's storm of malevolent strength ripped across the battlefield, shattering stone and soil. Cracks spiderwebbed through the ground, and fragments of gravel and dust erupted skyward in a violent deluge. As the earth heaved beneath them, only one question remained. Who would endure this onslaught and stand victorious? Within seconds, the forest around them shattered into clouds of sawdust, and choking smoke rolled across the scorched earth. A triumphant chuckle rang out in the haze. Before Cheng Xiao could even touch down, a dark shape darted forward. In the next instant, Cheng Xiao unleashed his domination palm, an invisible strike that slammed into Cheng Xiao's chest with bone-crushing force. A geyser of dark red blood spurted from his mouth as he was hurled skyward, flipping end over end. He smashed into the ground so hard that a deep ravine tore open where he landed. Cheng Xiao coughed, struggled upright, and spat another mouthful of blood. Agony lanced through his ribs. His chest felt as if it had collapsed in on itself. Gritting his teeth, he tried to summon his soul power, but the pain stopped him cold. How can you, a soul king, be this strong?" he gasped. Cheng Xiao regarded him with icy calm. Behind him, the smoke and dust swirled away to reveal Nash, the colossal dragon whose volcanic bulk dwarfed everything around it. The sheer presence of the beast radiated an oppressive force that bore down on Cheng Xiao's very soul, leaving him breathless with awe and fear. Cheng Xiao stared up at the towering dragon before him. Nash, now revealed in his true form, with trembling disbelief. How is this possible? What kind of soul beast is that? Before he could finish his thought, the clear sky hammer snapped back into his grip as if drawn by some unseen force. Pivoting on one foot, Cheng Xiao planted himself firmly, calves coiling like a tiger ready to spring. He was poised to strike, when Cheng Xiao flicked a hand toward the dragon. In the blink of an eye, Nash's massive body dissolved into shadows on the wind and vanished. Tang Hao barely had time to register what had happened when he noticed a startling change in Cheng Xiao himself. Two ebony horns had erupted from Cheng Xiao's brow, and his once dark eyes now burned a fierce scarlet. A twisted, malevolent energy pulsed outward, and an earth-shaking roar split the air. With that roar, the Dragon Clan's most forbidden technique was unleashed. The clear sky hammer in Tang Hao's hand disintegrated into mist, and the volatile soul power surging within him surged even harder, thrashing against the boundaries of his body. His limbs buckled, his features warping under the onslaught of raw, chaotic energy. Tang Hao's heart pounded in his chest as agony and shock wrenched through him. He could only gasp, voice cracking. What on earth is happening? Why are my martial soul and soul power going haywire? Tang Hao's voice cracked with shock as Cheng Xiao's technique, known as the Dragon's Fear, overwhelmed him. He couldn't summon a shred of soul power. With a strangled cry, he dropped to his knees, racked by and utterly defenseless before his opponent. Gradually, the oppressive sound wave that nullified any soul power faded away. Cheng Xiao had indeed unleashed the Dragon Clan's most sinister art, but the backlash had taken its toll. His body trembled under the strain, and a fierce dizziness clouded his mind. Still, he refused to yield an inch. Muttering an incantation under his breath, Cheng Xiao formed a simple hand seal. He poured the last of his precious soul energy into the gesture. In an instant, a vast, fiery magic circle blazed into existence before him. "Song of the Fire Dragon," he roared, teeth clenched against the pain. The magic circle flared brighter, and from its center emerged a colossal draconic silhouette. Its jaws opened wide, and a torrent of scorching flame burst forth, sweeping forward like a living inferno, ready to devour everything in its path. Boom! Explosions rattled the air as Tang Hao fought to rein in the surging soul power inside him. In the instant before the dragon's fiery breath would engulf him, he swung the clear sky hammer up into the blast. The radiating heat slammed into the great weapon with earth-shaking force, but Tang Hao planted his feet and held firm. With a roar, he poured every last ounce of strength into one decisive strike. The hammer blazed, condensing into a colossal, blood-red warhammer of pure energy that shot forward like a meteor. Then, without warning, a pale white beam tore through the sky and struck the crimson weapon head-on. In a flash of searing light, the blood-red glow vanished. The energy hammer lost its ethereal luster and crystallized into solid stone, tumbling from the heavens with a thunderous crash. What kind of magic does Medusa, the queen of snakes, really wield? Tang Hao muttered under his breath as he took in the scene. His face went pale the moment he recognized Douluo's approach. Clenching his fists, he spat. Of all people, Douluo actually shows up here. Douluo didn't break his stride. "Tang Hao, I don't want to fight you," he called out, his voice steady. "But if you intend to harm my friends, you'll have to get through me first." With a sudden surge of power, a dark green aura flared, and Douluo was at Cheng Xiao's side in an instant. His expression turned grave as he produced a small jade-green pill and pressed it into her hand. Without hesitation, Cheng Xiao swallowed. Within seconds, a gentle glow pulsed at her chest. Her drained soul power was being restored. From the shadows, the soldiers Tang Hao had summoned began to reemerge, their forms slipping back into the light. In moments, they formed a tight ring around Tang Hao, weapons at the ready. He scowled. He'd never expected Douluo to intervene at the last second, and now there was nothing he could do. Douluo watched Tang Hao's labored breathing, then turned to Cheng Xiao with concern. "How do you feel? Any injuries?" Cheng Xiao shook her head, managing a tired smile. "I'm fine." Relief softened Douluo's stern features. "That's good," he said quietly, bracing himself. Across the clearing, Tang Hao met his gaze, and both knew the real battle was just beginning. "Next, it's my turn." At Douluo's words, Cheng Xiao felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Douluo lightly patted him on the shoulder, then turned to face Tang Hao. In an instant, a vivid green aura flared around him. From his feet rose 9 radiant soul rings, 2 gleaming in gold and purple, the rest a deep obsidian, casting a solemn hush over the clearing. "Haotian Douluo," Douluo called, voice steady. Cheng Xiao is a student of my 7-star academy. If you press him further, you'll not only offend me, you'll make an enemy of the entire Tiando Empire's royal family. He folded his hands behind his back, making no move to attack. Tang Hao's eyes narrowed, his lips curled into a cold sneer. "Douluo do," he spat. "This doesn't concern you. Step aside now, or I'll deal with you next." Douluo only smiled, unruffled by the threat. "So the great Haotian Douluo has a fierce reputation," he said softly. "But I wonder, how much strength do you really have left? You may surpass me in power, yet if this fight drags on, I could still kill you." Tang Hao's expression darkened. "What exactly are you implying?" he growled. "It doesn't mean anything." Douluo shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I'm merely reminding you that if you kill Cheng Xiao now, I can guarantee your son, Tang San, won't survive for long." "Is that a threat?" Tang Hao's eyes narrowed to slits. "It's not a threat," Douluo replied evenly. "Just a friendly reminder." He kept smiling serenely, as if discussing the weather rather than matters of life and death. Tang Hao's blood boiled. He raised his hand to slap Douluo across the face, but found he couldn't bring himself to do it. He stood there, furious and powerless, his fist clenched in midair. End of chapter. Chapter 191. Cheng Xiao's trump card versus Tang Hao's trump card. Tang Hao's sneer cut through the stillness. "Douluo, if you're bent on dying, don't say I didn't give you a hand." Douluo merely raised an eyebrow, until Tang Hao's 6th soul ring ignited, blood-red sigils dancing across his clear sky hammer. In the next heartbeat, Tang Hao charged, warhammer poised to crush him. Douluo's eyes flared with resolve. "Not today." With a swift backhand, he caught Cheng Xiao square in the chest. The strike slammed Cheng Xiao backward, and he crashed into the forest floor. "Soldiers, attack!" Cheng Xiao gasped as he scrambled up, but in that instant, the shadow soldiers reached out and seized his thoughts. From every thicket and hollow, countless silhouettes streamed forward, converging on Tang Hao like living darkness. At the sight of it, Douluo's 4th and 5th soul rings blazed emerald. A sickly green fog, the deadly poison of the green phosphorus snake king, erupted from his body. In seconds, the ruined forest was swallowed by the toxic haze. Leaves blackened and curled, blossoms wilted, and every plant decayed under the fog's corrosive breath. A sudden gust of wind heralded Douluo's lightning-fast charge, his fist glinting with lethal snake venom as it drove toward Tang Hao. At the same moment, an army of shadow soldiers swarmed in, turning the clearing into a maelstrom of violence. "Don't get in my way!" Tang Hao roared, unleashing a torrent of soul energy that shredded dozens of attackers into writhing black mist. But Cheng Xiao's shadow magic wove that mist back into corporeal form, and the newly reborn soldiers surged forward without hesitation. Now, amid the swirling poisonous fog, Tang Hao and Douluo battled side by side against the endless tide of shadow warriors. And overhead, Cheng Xiao stood motionless with arms raised, eyes glowing a fierce blood red. Calling on the ancient power of the Dragon Clan, he felt his flesh ripple and harden, iridescent scales spreading in layers across his body as a vast reservoir of energy roared into being in his throat. Douluo, locked in combat with Tang Hao, suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He glanced over his shoulder and saw Cheng Xiao gathering energy. For a moment he froze, then realization hit him. Is that kid really going to pull out that move? Before he could fully react, Tang Hao's massive Haotian hammer swung back in a powerful arc and drove into Douluo's chest. Like a kite with its string severed, Douluo was hurled backward. Bang! The sound of breaking ribs echoed as a fountain of blood burst from his lips. He teetered on the brink of unconsciousness, but at the last moment he released his martial soul body, using it to steady his staggering form. Gasping for breath, Douluo stared at Tang Hao in stunned disbelief. Even after taking such a grievous hit, the Haotian Douluo was still capable of unleashing this level of raw power. His face drained of color as he silently acknowledged the gulf between them. Cheng Xiao planted his feet and sprang into the air, muttering under his breath, "This blasted hammer has given me nothing but trouble." He soared like a bolt of lightning, hefting the Haotian hammer as it roared through the ranks of shadow soldiers, driving them back, if only for a moment. From the darkness below, Nash's anxious voice called up to him. "Your Highness, isn't it too soon to unleash that skill?" Cheng Xiao tightened his grip on the hammer, voice calm and resolute. I'm ready. This was the first time he'd ever attempted the dragon's breath technique, and he couldn't afford a lapse in concentration. He'd ordered Nash to hold back, while a prolonged fight risked dulling his focus. A swift, decisive strike could end it all. On the battlefield's edge, Cheng Xiao watched with growing dread. He felt it in his bones. If Cheng Xiao pulled this off, the power of that ultimate move would be his undoing. A cold sweat broke out on his brow as he scanned the skies. What other tricks does he have left? He wondered, lips drawn tight with unease. Under Douluo's unblinking stare, Cheng Xiao ground his teeth. In the next instant, his form blurred into a streak of onyx light as he hurtled toward Cheng Xiao. A legion of shadow soldiers materialized to block his path, stepping forward in unison. Cheng Xiao tightened his grip on the Haoqian hammer, its surface crackling with blood-tinged lightning. With a roar, he brought the weapon down, each blow obliterating the nearest shadows in showers of darkness. Yet, no sooner had the figures collapsed than they reformed, rising again in endless waves. Frustration flared in Cheng Xiao's eyes. Why won't they stop? He muttered under his breath. Without hesitation, he whirled on his heel and shook the Haoqian hammer. A vortex of soul-powered wind sprang to life around him, howling outward and pinning the shadow soldiers to the ground. They writhed in place, utterly suppressed by the swirling gale. As the last shadows fell silent, Cheng Xiao's lips curved into a cold smile. He watched Cheng Xiao step through the dissipating whirlwind, confidence radiating from his calm posture. "You're so desperate to kill me," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "Very well, then I'll kill you first." A low, rolling roar echoed across the battlefield as Cheng Xiao's chest energy churned like molten magma, coalescing into a sphere of pure destruction. In the next instant, his eyes snapped open, pupils blazing with draconic light, and a surge of power erupted from his body. Drawing in a brilliant stream of energy, he thrust his head forward and unleashed the Dragon Clan's ultimate technique, Dragon's Breath. The blast itself seemed capable of tearing the world apart. Cheng Xiao's hair stood on end as shockwaves rippled through the air. Instinctively, he tightened his grip on the clear sky hammer. At his command, the 6 soul rings strung around his arm, each glowing yellow, purple, and black, burst open simultaneously. "Explode the rings! Clear sky, protect me!" Pure soul energy poured into Cheng Xiao, infusing his muscles with raw power. With a thunderous cry, he swung the hammer in a sweeping arc. In an instant, the energies of heaven and earth crystallized before him into a vast pearly-white barrier. It surged upward, impenetrable and radiant, poised to meet Cheng Xiao's cataclysmic breath head-on. Cheng Xiao's ultimate trump card was unleashed in that moment, the Clear Sky Hammer. A legendary magic skill forged by Tang Chen, the 99th level peerless Douluo and one of the so-called 2 pillars of the Soul Master world, and wielded exclusively by disciples of the Clear Sky sect. In the next instant, a titanic blast of dragon breath smashed into the white barrier. The collision sparked a cataclysmic explosion, accompanied by a deafening roar as waves of destructive energy rippled outward. The sheer force rent the earth, carving deep gorges into the ground and warping the very air with spatial tremors. For nearly 100 miles around the 7-Star Academy, the thunderous shock echoed like celestial thunder. Above the academy, a wave of blazing flame arced across the sky, a burning tide of fire that illuminated the night. The dragon's roar swept through Tiando City, rousing countless sleepers from their beds. One by one, they flung open their windows, eyes widening at the distant conflagration and ears ringing with relentless explosions. A chill of terror gripped their hearts. What kind of monstrous power could unleash such devastation? Would Tiandu City be the next victim of this unstoppable force? End of chapter. Chapter 192, A Flash of Inspiration for Douluo. A plume of smoke rose on the horizon, unmistakably in the direction of 7-Star Academy. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Did their dean anger some heavyweight? No one realized that the powerhouse they spoke of was actually a teenager, a young man who had just forced a Soul King-level titled Douluo to retreat. Inside the courtyard, Cheng Xiao's dragon breath attack began to fade as his energy reserves emptied. With one last roar, the torrent of flame sputtered out. The ground trembled, dust and debris cascading like the aftermath of an earthquake. Thankfully, the skill itself wasn't meant for wide-scale destruction. Its only real devastation came from striking Tang Hao's barrier, which set off a series of localized explosions. Tang Hao, standing at the blast's epicenter, flushed with embarrassment as he leaned on the massive clear sky hammer, fighting to keep his balance. Cheng Xiao and Douluo Bo, by contrast, emerged virtually unscathed. Cheng Xiao panted heavily, drained but unharmed, while Douluo Bo showed no signs of damage whatsoever, his expression calm, his body steady. Because Tang Hao had been standing closest to the explosion's epicenter, he bore the brunt of its force. The enemy's dragon breath, a scorching torrent of spiritual flame, tore through his defenses. Even after shattering 6 of his soul rings and unleashing the Haotian sect's strongest protective soul skill, his muscles were shredded. Vivid red blood seeped from the gashes, dripping to the earth like merciless rain. Jagged scars scored his entire chest, the white of fractured bone glinting beneath torn flesh. In a last-ditch gambit, Tang Hao had activated the Haotian sect's most terrible secret, the Great Shumi Hammer's ring explosion. This forbidden technique let him detonate each soul ring in turn, instantly unleashing its stored might and fusing that raw energy into his body. With every burst, his power surged to unimaginable heights, especially when the rings were of superior grade. But the cost was dire. Each ring could be sacrificed only once, and once every ring had erupted, the cultivator was left utterly spent, his spirit and body teetering on collapse. Such was the price of ring explosion, a divine art whose ferocity was matched only by its ruinous toll. Using the ring blast is never to be taken lightly. The moment it's unleashed, a cultivator's soul rings vanish entirely, leaving only residual soul power to sustain them for the next 72 hours. Only after those 3 days will new rings gradually form. What's more, if the ring blast is attempted again within 36 days, there's a real danger of permanently destroying one's soul rings. Had Tang Hao not synchronized his ring blast with the Haotian shield just in time, the backlash would have severely crippled or even killed him. Well done, kid. You actually made me bleed. No wonder Xiao-san never stood a chance. Tang Hao clutched his chest, pressing a trembling, blood-soaked palm against his robes. His eyes, wide with genuine fear, fixed on Cheng Xiao. The arrogance that once shone in his stance was gone, replaced by desperate caution. If he'd tried to press his advantage any further, he'd have only invited total humiliation. A triumphant smile curved Cheng Xiao's lips, though a faint blush of embarrassment flickered across his cheeks. He didn't waver at Tang Hao's ragged breathing. Instead, he lifted an eyebrow and spoke in a confident, low voice. Tang Hao, if I'm not mistaken, that old injury of yours must be flaring up again, right? Tang Hao's once black robes were now little more than shredded rags, and every swallow sent a fresh stab of agony through his throat. If not for the various blessings granted by the great wizard, he would have collapsed long ago under the strain of his drained soul power. A harsh chuckle slipped from his lips as he glared at Cheng Xiao across the clearing. The ancient wound in his side flared painfully, but he forced himself to stand straight. So my old injury flares up. Big deal. He rasped. As long as I have time to recuperate, I can still kill you before you ever reach your true potential. He spoke with all the confidence he could muster, determined not to reveal how close he was to breaking. Tang Hao knew that if Cheng Xiao managed even a sliver of strength to strike in concert with the Shadow Soul Beast, he'd be turned to ash by its dragon's breath in an instant. Yet, to his surprise and confusion, the beast hadn't unleashed that breath. What Tang Hao didn't realize was that Nash, the Shadow Soul Beast, had deliberately held back. It waited because Cheng Xiao insisted on finishing the fight on his own. Relying too much on others was never a good idea. Tang Hao, Cheng Xiao said in a low, steady voice, you'd better hang on until you've fully recovered, or I'll kill you. Strangely enough, Tang Hao felt a flicker of fear deep in his chest. Where had this kid found such audacity? He was daring to threaten a titled Douluo face to face. Could Cheng Xiao really have another trump card he hadn't revealed yet? Tang Hao didn't believe the threat for a second, yet the recent battle had made one thing clear. This boy was far more dangerous than he'd first assumed, and every ability he'd shown only seemed stronger than the last. Tang Hao wouldn't risk testing him again. He was already calculating his best route of retreat. This encounter had been a disastrous blow to both his pride and his forces. Swallowing his anger, Tang Hao knew that if word of this defeat spread, his reputation as the mighty Haotian Douluo would be ruined. A titled Douluo incapable of handling a Soul King. What a joke that would be. Cheng Xiao, mark my words, I'll take your life sooner or later. Tang Hao's voice rang out, cold and unwavering. With a sneer, he reclaimed his martial spirit, the Haotian hammer, then turned on his heel and strode off, leaving Cheng Xiao frozen in surprise. Cheng Xiao watched his rival vanish into the distance, lips twitching as he struggled for a response. Finally, Nash slipped from the shadows, guilt pooling in his eyes. Your Majesty, shall I give chase? Cheng Xiao shook his head, waving Nash away. No, it's not your fault. I'm the king. I don't expect you to shield me every moment. My duty is to protect you all. With that, Cheng Xiao sank to the ground, utterly spent. He closed his eyes and focused on steadying his breath. Douluo arrived at his side the moment Tang Hao disappeared, but when his gaze settled on the shadow soldiers lurking behind Cheng Xiao, he could only offer a wry, bittersweet smile. Douluo crouched amid the smoldering ruins, watching the last eddies of dust swirl above the broken stones. Only moments ago, Tang Hao, the legendary Haotian Douluo, who'd once pinned the Pope to the earth, had been completely outmatched by that upstart Soul King prodigy, Cheng Xiao. Worse yet, Tang Hao had fled the scene in utter humiliation. If news of this spread through the Soul Master world, it would ignite a scandal unrivaled in living memory. A wicked grin crept across Douluo's face. He brushed a charred shard of tile from his fingertip and let his voice drop to a conspiratorial whisper. Tang Hao, he murmured, I've always kept my distance and held my tongue. But look what you've done, ruined my college grounds and turned yourself into a laughingstock. If I don't get the scoop on your disgrace out there, then I'm not Douluo. He rose to his feet, smoothing ash from his robes as the thrill of possibility coursed through him. After all, what could capture the Soul Master world's attention more completely than the downfall of the mighty Haotian Douluo at the hands of a mere boy? With that thought, Douluo set off, ready to fan the flames of rumor and watch the entire community reel in astonishment. Chapter 193, Spirit Hall's Top Secret Files. Douluo was just considering how best to spread the astonishing news when a roar, like the rumble of distant thunder, shook the entire academy grounds. Moments later, a tide of armored soldiers, the banners of the Tiando Royal Army snapping in the wind, surged in to encircle Seven-Star Academy. The newly awakened students stared in disbelief. What kind of conflict could possibly warrant the Imperial Army's intervention? And then it dawned on them. One of the Academy's founding benefactors was none other than Prince Shui Qinghe of the Tiando Empire. Through the ranks of plated troops, an almost magnetic stillness gathered, an iron flow of soldiers parting to reveal a single figure. Prince Shui Qinghe strode forward, his presence commanding every eye. From within the courtyard, Douluo turned to Cheng Xiao, who was calmly regulating his breath. Keep an eye on him for me, Douluo said, using a slight smile to mask his urgency. Before Cheng Xiao could reply, Douluo vanished in a flash of light, teleporting outside the academy walls. Left in the sudden hush that followed his departure, Cheng Xiao's shadow soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Not one of them spoke. The shadow warriors were still debating how best to shield the king when Yin slipped silently into view. Instantly, dozens of blue-silver emperors fanned out around her, their senses so keen that even the subtlest movement would draw their attention. At her arrival, the shadow soldiers fell completely silent. Outside the gates of Seven Stars Academy, Shui Qinghe stood at the head of his forces, staring in disbelief at the shattered tree line ahead. Green pines cleaved in two, grass smoldering, leaves strewn like confetti. Before he could form the question on his lips, a flash of jade-green light streaked down from the sky and landed gracefully before him. Mr. Douluo, Shui Qinghe called, stepping forward. What happened here at the academy? Why this explosion? Douluo offered a bowed apology. Your Highness, I'm deeply sorry for the chaos. A man came seeking revenge against me. We fought, and the resulting energy discharge caused that blast. He fled shortly afterward, though he sustained grave injuries. Douluo's gaze lingered on Shui Qinghe, an unspoken plea for understanding. Shui Qinghe, perceptive as ever, met his eyes and nodded. He understood perfectly. Shui Qinghe wheeled about and barked a series of crisp orders. Instantly, the Dark Army fell back in disciplined waves, retreating until they vanished beyond the academy's walls. With the threat fully withdrawn, Qinghe exchanged a few terse words with Du Gubo and took his leave. Beneath his composed exterior, a dark premonition churned. He feared tonight's chaos might have been carefully staged. Back at the prince's mansion, he wasted no time. He ordered his most trusted agents to track down the mysterious enemy Du Gubo had named. "I pray this wasn't all someone's deliberate scheme," Qinghe muttered, clenching his fists as a spark of hatred flared in his bright eyes. The explosion that had rocked Tiando City had captured the attention of every major power, and none had mobilized more swiftly than the Spirit Hall. At the heart of the city stood the Platinum Bishop's Chamber, a 200-square-meter expanse of polished marble, towering shelves, and vaulted ceilings. Here lay an assortment of priceless relics and top-secret documents from Spirit City, materials so closely guarded that only the Platinum Bishop himself could access them. This evening, the Grand Hall stood almost eerily quiet, its only occupants the Platinum Bishop of Tiando and his beloved, deep in hushed conversation and undisturbed by the outside world. Sarath lounged on the oversized velvet sofa, a young woman, clad in nothing but her own breathless gasps, straddling his lap. His hands moved in deliberate, practiced rhythm, eliciting a soft moan from her lips. Yet even as he attended to her, his gaze remained fixed on the scorched courtyard beyond the floor-to-ceiling window. Earlier that evening, a thunderous explosion had erupted at Seven Star Academy. Flames still curled up through shattered marble, and the air smelled of burning spirit crystals. Sarath's pupils contracted. Du Gubo, head of the academy, was powerful, but surely not enough to cause a blast of this magnitude on his own. Could someone of title Douluo rank be operating in secret? Or worse, had Du Gubo, in some hidden experiment, unleashed a soul beast far more formidable than anyone anticipated? His spy report spoke of a colossal creature. Covered in emerald scales, its roar had shaken the very foundations of the academy. The descriptions matched nothing in the official bestiary. Was this the long-rumored evolution of the green phosphorus snake emperor's martial spirit? A perverse twist of fate that even Du Gubo might not dare attempt, unless he had lost his mind. With a slow exhale, Sarath disentangled the woman from his lap and gently pushed her aside. He smoothed down his trousers, his expression hardening. Rising, he crossed to his desk and retrieved a slim, confidential dispatch from the Spirit Hall. It was stamped with the hall's insignia and bore the seal of the Grand Elder. He broke the seal, eyes scanning the paper's densely packed lines. Sarath's lips pressed into a thin line. The hall's instructions were clear. Investigate the academy ruins at once, contain any surviving soul beasts, and above all, identify the source of that dragon-like roar. No one, not even Du Gubo, was to be allowed to claim such power unchecked. Tucking the dispatch into his jacket, Sarath straightened his shoulders. The night had just begun, and already it was clear that Tiando City would never be the same. At the sight of Sarath's approach, the woman dared not hesitate. She snatched up the clothes strewn across the floor, slipped into them in record time, and then bolted from the room. Left alone, Sarath lowered his gaze to the dossier in his hands, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. According to these records, Du Gubo had never demonstrated a soul skill with overtly destructive power. His known abilities were almost exclusively large-scale toxin techniques or other poison-based skills. Something about that didn't sit right. What, exactly, was Du Gubo concealing? Sarath tapped the edge of the datapad thoughtfully. The events unfolding in Tiando City were too significant to ignore. As a Platinum Bishop, it was his duty not only to uncover every shred of evidence, but also to report his findings directly to the Pope's palace in Wuhan City. Then Sarath paused. He remembered a young figure who had stood by Du Gubo's side. With renewed urgency, he accessed the records on Cheng Xiao. His eyes widened as he read. At just 14 years old, Cheng Xiao's soul power level was already above 50, and every single one of his martial soul rings was perfectly aligned in the optimal configuration. Sarath set the dossier down on the desk with a soft thud. He leaned back, mind racing. Such prodigious talent at so young an age was virtually unheard of. What was the true connection between Du Gubo and this remarkable youth, and why had it been omitted from every official report? The answers, Sarath realized, might rewrite everything they thought they knew. How did he do it? Salas pressed a hand to his forehead, disbelief heavy in his voice. If this report was accurate, what sort of prodigy was Cheng Xiao? Determined to verify the facts, Salas immediately accessed the Spirit Hall's archives. He flipped through file after file, stopping dead when he read the final entry. In the all-continental high-level Soul Master Elite competition, a Soul King youth appeared bearing 5 10,000-year soul rings. His head spun. A Soul King already possessing 5 10,000-year soul rings. Could it be true? Had the balance of power in the world shifted overnight? Salas knew the Hall's intelligence was never wrong, but the revelation still stunned him. After a moment's hesitation, he strode to the tall bookcase behind his desk. With a firm pull on an oversized tome, the shelves shuddered and creaked, sliding aside to reveal a panel set into the stone wall. A faint pulse of spiritual energy radiated from the square metal plate, an obvious switch. Salas braced himself. Whatever lay beyond this hidden door, it would demand answers. Sarath pressed his right palm against the metal plate. Immediately, a soft red glow pulsed through the surface, scanning the lines of his hand. A quiet mechanical hiss followed, and the panel in front of him slid inward. Behind it lay a compact, 1-foot square compartment cradling a neat stack of crimson folders. He flipped through them and withdrew one labeled Top Secret. The folder contained only 4 pages, each sheet housing a single classified report. As Sarath studied the fine print, his eyes widened at a familiar name. Cheng Xiao? He murmured. So he really is Elder Ju's disciple. That explains everything. He lingered over the details. At just 14 years old, Cheng Xiao had already achieved the rank of Soul King. No wonder, he'd quietly become Elder Ju's protege. Carefully, Sarath returned the documents to their hiding place and closed the panel. He stepped out of the dim vault and hurried back to his desk. There, he paused, gathering his thoughts about the shocking revelations and the events unfolding in Tiando City. Then, with resolve, he picked up his pen and began to record every crucial detail. I only hope His Holiness the Pope will not fault me when he reads this, Salas murmured as he set down his quill. With the letter complete, he summoned the spy who would carry it to the Vatican. Once the messenger arrived, Salas went over every detail to ensure its safe delivery. When the spy departed, Salas called back the woman who had slipped away earlier. As the official spokesperson of the Wuhun Hall in Tiando City, his singular pleasure lay in her company. With his duties discharged, he was eager to whisk her away to Wushan. He didn't dwell on how the Pope might react. After all, he had done exactly what was required of him. Even if the pontiff demanded he answer for his actions, Salas knew the hidden powers supporting him were beyond any papal decree. Chapter 194, A Blessing in Disguise. A day later, in a silent chamber at 7-Star Academy, the soft scent of incense still lingered in the air. In one corner, Cheng Xiao sat cross-legged on a simple cot. Around him, a faint purple aura swirled and glowed, casting shifting shadows against the walls. His eyelids fluttered as the light intensified, pouring into every corner of the room like dawn breaking through a window. Soldiers hidden in the shadows exchanged astonished glances as the boy's aura flared brighter. His strength, it's increased again, one whispered in awe. Suddenly, Cheng Xiao's eyes snapped open, their depths pulsing with dark violet fire. The aura around him surged once more, then gradually subsided, until the chamber was calm and still save for the dying embers of purple light. He let out a slow breath, a small smile touching his lips. This unexpected boost in power, born from his battle with Tang Hao, proved that true strength came only through one's own efforts. Cheng Xiao rose to his feet, steady and resolute. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he now possessed the confidence to face them head-on. Soul force pulsed through Cheng Xiao's veins, and a faint smile curved his lips. In hindsight, that fierce battle had been a blessing in disguise. He drew in the lingering, delicate scent of the battlefield, took a steady breath, and swung his legs off the edge of the bed. Moments later, dressed in the freshly laundered clothes Ayin had prepared, he heard the door creak open. Dugubo stepped inside, his dark green robe flowing around him. He halted at the threshold, surprise flashing across his face at the sight of Cheng Xiao standing calmly. Then relief and pride softened his expression as he crossed the room. "My boy," Douluo exclaimed with a broad grin, "you look positively radiant. Have you broken through?" Cheng Xiao returned his smile. "You could say that," he admitted. "Quite a lucky turn of events." Douluo appraised him with a satisfied nod. "Not bad. Not bad at all. From the looks of you, you're perfectly fine." Leaning against the wall, Cheng Xiao shook his head gently. "Nothing serious. I did expend a great deal of energy back there, but after a day and a night of rest, I'm as good as new." Douluo leaned back in his creaking wooden chair, folding his arms across his chest as he studied Cheng Xiao over the rim of his wine gourd. "Tell me," he rumbled, "why would Haotian Douluo come after you? Is there some secret between you two?" Cheng Xiao sighed and set the gourd on the table. "No secrets, just bad blood. You know Tang San, right? He's the son of Haotian Douluo, and not long ago, I nearly killed him in a duel." "Damn, that brat's got some nerve," Douluo spat, his disdain clear in the curl of his lip. Years by Cheng Xiao's side hadn't tempered the old cultivator's colorful language. "So the old man wants vengeance because you wounded his son. Fine, but why stop me from finishing the job? If I'd taken them both out, problem solved." Cheng Xiao raised a hand, voice calm but firm. "Bo, think it through. If you'd really killed Tang San in the Golden Triangle tonight, do you imagine you'd walk away unscathed?" A harsh laugh shook Douluo's lanky frame. "There's a reason I held back. It's not that I didn't want to kill him. Sometimes it's that you physically can't. Dropping them? That's easy. Dealing with Haotian Douluo's wrath afterward? That's where the real trouble starts. He's on another level, and his son, you can't mess with him either." Cheng Xiao picked up his gourd again and drained it in one breath. He set it down with a muted tap and spoke in a low voice. "I don't want to keep fighting him. No matter how much we cover our tracks, none of it erases that I nearly killed his heir." Douluo lifted the empty cup the innkeeper had just refilled for him. "In this world, it's always a matter of who strikes first, but for tonight, let's call a truce. We're under the same roof, after all." With a swift motion, he downed the wine, slammed the cup on the table, then rose to his feet. I'll let you live, for now." Cheng Xiao watched the old cultivator steady himself. In a soft murmur, he said, "I know you'd never stand between me and death." Douluo snorted and stamped, rattling the table. "Even if I wanted to, what could I do? Tang San and the Golden Triangle are all formidable fighters. I'm just an old poison user. At best, I could rough him up once. And Haotian Douluo, you don't provoke someone of his stature without paying the price." Cheng Xiao gave a wry nod, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Then it seems the three of us are destined to lie in the same grave." "Don't forget that Tang Hao still has deep, unresolved conflicts with the Spirit Hall," Cheng Xiao reminded him. "If you kill Tang San, you'll be invoking Tang Hao's undying wrath." Douluo's expression darkened. "Tang Hao is hot-headed. I grant you, I might outrun him," he admitted grudgingly. "But what about my granddaughter Douluo Yan? If Tang Hao loses his mind, he could come after Sister Yanzi too. Then where would you be?" For the first time, Douluo saw Cheng Xiao's point. As a titled Douluo, he was accustomed to acting on impulse, certain his power would see him through any reprisal. Yet Cheng Xiao's warning cut deeper than any blade. Killing Tang San would shatter Tang Hao's reason, and no one could predict the havoc a desperate father might wreak. After all, Tang Hao had gone on a rampage when his son was critically wounded. What might he do if his son were slain? In that moment, Douluo realized that eliminating Tang San would unleash a wrath so fierce it could sweep the entire mainland. It was a risk he could not and would not take. Douluo exhaled warily. He'd once assumed that attaining the rank of title Douluo would sweep away most of his troubles, but the higher he climbed, the more immense the foes above him appeared. Even now, there were still countless Douluos stronger than he, each wielding authority he could not ignore. Seeing him so pensive, Cheng Xiao couldn't help but tease. "Come on, Poison Douluo. You're supposed to dominate the world with that name. Why the long face?" He cracked a wry smile. "Don't forget, Tang Hao's real enemy isn't you, it's me. Even if there's something to worry about, it should be me doing the worrying." Cheng Xiao bit back a laugh. In truth, she knew he was deliberately shoulder-tapping fate to protect her. After all, Tang Hao's entire crusade was driven by his desire to save her, not to hunt Douluo. He probably didn't even see Douluo as a target. After a brief silence, Douluo changed the subject. By the way, how long has it been? A full day and night of rest, and you haven't eaten once. Are you starving? Cheng Xiao stretched luxuriously, then offered a mischievous grin. So you're treating me, right? Something delicious, too. Douluo rolled his eyes, but the corners of his mouth quirked upward. What nonsense. Fine, let's go find you a proper meal. With that, the tension between them eased, if only for a moment, as they stepped away together toward whatever came next. I still owe you money from our last meal, Douluo said, flashing Cheng Xiao a glare that barely concealed his generosity. We're not eating at the academy today. We're going out, to the most expensive restaurant in Tiando City. Cheng Xiao's eyes lit up. Then don't bring only me. Invite Sister Yanzi too. You're her grandfather, after all. You haven't forgotten her, have you? Douluo sniffed. As if I'd only invite you. When I say I'll treat you, I'm treating both of you. How much can one person eat? With that, he swept his sleeve and strode out the door, giving the impression that Cheng Xiao didn't matter in the slightest. Cheng Xiao tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a small smile playing at her lips as she hurried after him. Old poison, she teased under her breath. Are you actually serious? You sound kind of sour about it. Shut up! Douluo shouted over his shoulder. You're the ungrateful one. You got your revenge. You broke through a level. Of course I'll treat you when you wake up. Now, stop complaining and enjoy it. Cheng Xiao laughed softly. You old poison, you're as insincere as ever. Sincere? Douluo shot back without missing a step. Don't make me laugh. Why don't I know? Heh, always so stubborn. Heh, you stinky boy. With soft laughter still in the air, the old man and the young boy strolled along the road paved in blue bricks. Their gentle bickering carried a surprising warmth, as if every tease and chuckle had been carefully woven into the afternoon breeze. Bathed in sunlight, their figures grew smaller and more distant until at last they vanished together down the sunlit path. End of chapter. Chapter 195, Tang San's loathing for the blue-silver grass. The Shrek Academy infirmary was cloaked in dim silence. Tang San lay motionless on a narrow bed, his body wrapped from head to toe in fresh white bandages. He stared up at the ceiling, his eyes vacant and glassy. It had been 2 days since the 8 spider lances shattered against him, nearly costing him his life. Under the relentless care of the healing spirit masters, and bolstered by Ning Fengji's 7 treasures glazed tower, his broken bones and torn flesh had largely knitted back together. He could stand and walk again, yet he refused to leave the bed. From the moment he awoke, Tang San's thoughts were a brutal loop of the same memory. The instant Cheng Xiao had defeated him. He could not grasp why the blue-silver grass, his signature spirit skill and pride, had rebelled and betrayed him at the crucial moment. Nor could he understand how the unique Tang sect techniques he'd painstakingly mastered proved utterly useless before her. These questions gnawed at his mind, driving sleep and appetite from him. For 2 days he hadn't eaten a bite or even sipped water. Though his body was healing, his spirit lay shattered, and no medical treatment could yet reach those deeper wounds. Even someone with no cultivation could have beaten him in his present state. Tang San had barricaded his room so thoroughly with coils of blue-silver grass that his master, desperate with worry, couldn't even open the door. No matter how urgently his master called, Tang San did not answer. Over the past 2 days, he'd turned the same question over and over in his mind, and the more he thought, the deeper his confusion grew. He hated his martial spirit more with every passing hour. Ever since he became a soul master, he'd stood head and shoulders above his peers, thanks to the Tang sect's unique techniques. True, blue-silver grass wasn't a spectacular martial spirit, but under his consummate control and his master's guidance, it more than held its own. Yet each time the grass betrayed him, most painfully when it slipped out of his command and went down to defeat against Cheng Xiao, his simmering frustration boiled over. The fleeting sense of superiority he once felt in facing opponents with far stronger spirits was gone. Deep down, Tang San knew exactly what the problem was. Blue-silver grass really was a hopelessly weak martial spirit, and he was sick of struggling with its limitations. Tang San sat alone in the early morning mist of the practice hall, replaying his defeat over and over in his mind. Every loss, every weakness felt like a fresh wound. If it weren't for the Tang sect's hidden weapons, he wondered, would his blue-silver grass ever pose the slightest threat? Without those clever gadgets, smoke bombs, iron darts, snapping traps, could his vines stand a chance against soul masters whose martial spirits pulsed with raw power? He forced himself to recall the truth. Blue-silver grass was unique. Its reach was unparalleled, its versatility astonishing, but its intrinsic strength was pitiful. From the moment it had awakened, its frailty had marked it as inferior. No amount of training could change the fact that, unassisted, it lacked the force to overwhelm a truly powerful spirit. Tang San shut his eyes and thought back on all his victories. Every decisive moment had depended on a hidden weapon. Strip away those firearms and explosives, and he was just another soul master wielding a weak spirit. Worse, he realized that even his life-or-death breakthroughs hadn't been entirely his own doing. It was the 8-spider soul bone that had driven him to gather soul rings far stronger than any of his peers, at the cost of countless agonizing trials. Without that bone, without those extra rings, would he ever have impressed the master? Would he ever have won a single match? Anger flared in his chest. All this time, he had clung to the belief that he was destined for greatness, that blue-silver grass had untapped potential waiting to be unleashed. Yet now he saw the foundation of his confide. Ents was built on borrowed power, hidden weapons, and the relentless hunger of a cursed soul bone. He opened his eyes to the soft glow of dawn filtering through the wooden lattice. The tendrils of his grass quivered at his feet, as if sharing his turmoil. Tang San's gaze hardened. He refused to be defined by weakness or dependency. If his spirit was lacking, he would strengthen it. If he needed to surpass his limits, then that was exactly what he would do. No shortcuts, no gadgets, no crutches. A quiet resolve settled over him. He would find the true power within blue-silver grass, and within himself. The road would be long and fraught with danger, but Tang San had never shied away from a challenge. With one final glance at the swirling mist, he stood and stretched, letting his spirit energy spark alive in his chest. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it on his own terms, and prove that Tang San, with blue-silver grass in hand, could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest soul masters of the Tang sect. From the very beginning, Tang San had stood head and shoulders above other soul masters his age, a clear sign that his blue-silver grass spirit wasn't inferior to any. But times had changed. Everyone was advancing in power, and now there were prodigies like Cheng Xiao who overshadowed the rest. Tang San found himself wondering if he'd made the right choice, sticking with blue-silver grass instead of shifting to the far mightier Clear Sky Hammer. If I'd focused on the Clear Sky Hammer, could I have beaten Cheng Xiao? Tang San asked himself, recalling his second martial spirit. He now knew its true origin. The Clear Sky Hammer was the heirloom spirit weapon of the legendary Clear Sky sect, the world's #1 school of martial souls. Surely, had he cultivated that hammer from the outset, he'd be far stronger today. Yet there was a catch. His father had expressly forbidden him to add any spirit rings to the hammer, and even his master's advice had been conditional. First, elevate your blue-silver grass to its highest potential. Only then, once your core spirit is perfected, may you begin accumulating rings on the hammer. Only in that way can you hope to claim the coveted 10,000-year spirit rings. Faced with that dilemma, Tang San understood the wisdom of the path laid out for him, but the question still burned. Was it enough to bridge the gap to someone like Cheng Xiao? By the time he'd accumulated all 10,000-year spirit rings, just imagine how formidable the Clear Sky Hammer would be. Yet Tang San couldn't help glancing down at his right hand. With a supposedly worthless spirit like blue-silver grass, could he ever reach the level his master promised? Could he really become a titled Douluo someday? As his own spirit power rose and the number of spirit rings on his belt grew, Tang San couldn't ignore blue-silver grass's inherent flaws. Dai Mubai's white tiger and Ma Hongjin's phoenix were both premier spirits, their innate strength only amplified by each new ring. His grass spirit, however adaptable, was hampered by a frail base. No matter how many rings it added, it would always struggle to shed its reputation as useless. Even if it somehow overcame that stigma, how could it match the raw power of a phoenix or white tiger? And that didn't even account for Cheng Xiao's dark attribute spirit. A shadow spirit unlike any seen before, its current might had already outclassed all of its peers. Faced with such prodigies, Tang San felt the weight of his own spirit's limitations more keenly than ever. Yet somewhere inside, a stubborn spark refused to die, because he had no intention of accepting weak as his destiny. Tang San had always bragged about being stronger than his classmates, yet here he was, crushed beneath Cheng Xiao's weight and utterly helpless. If only he'd cultivated the clear sky hammer spirit, would he still have lost to Cheng Xiao? If he'd chosen the clear sky hammer from the start, who among his peers could have posed any real challenge? The more Tang San thought about it, the deeper grew his resentment for his blue-silver grass spirit. An idea formed in his mind. If he'd had the clear sky hammer, defeat would have been impossible. It wasn't his fault, it was the fault of that worthless blue-silver grass. As long as he wielded the clear sky hammer, Cheng Xiao would never have pinned him down. In fact, no spirit master in the academy could hope to stand against him. Tang San couldn't shake the other spirit master's high praise of the clear sky hammer martial soul. The more he thought about it, the more determined he became. If he could awaken clear sky hammer as his second martial soul, he would leave every peer, including the formidable Cheng Xiao, whose very name felt like a nightmare, far behind. Outside Tang San's room, Master Tang Hao kept vigil. His bloodshot eyes drooped with exhaustion, and yawns came so often that deep, dark circles framed his tired face. For 2 nights straight, the master had slept poorly, tormented by worry, ever since Tang San had locked himself inside to devote every waking hour to his ambition. Leaning against the doorframe, Tang Hao pictured all the ways his student might go too far, accidentally striking himself with a hammer, or worse. If Tang San injured himself, the blame would fall squarely on the master's shoulders. The thought made his temper flare. He couldn't bear the idea of watching his disciple destroy himself in a single reckless moment. To Master Tang Hao, Tang San was more than just a pupil. He was living proof of Tang Hao's martial theories, the culmination of years of study and teaching. He could not stand by helplessly while that promise slipped through his fingers, nor could he allow Tang San's impatience to undo everything they had worked for. So he waited, determined to intervene the moment his disciple's ambition threatened to become self-destructive. During the preliminary training, Tang San found his master's theoretical lessons immensely helpful. What no one realized, however, was that while Tang San steadily advanced, Cheng Xiao was surging ahead even faster. It was precisely for this reason that the master grew uneasy. He feared that Tang San, stung by impatience, might make a reckless mistake. End of chapter. Chapter 196. Teacher, please let me switch to a second martial spirit. A pale dawn hung over the training grounds as Liu Erlong approached, carrying a steaming bowl of porridge. He found Master Yu Xiaogong slumped against a wooden railing, exhausted and unshaven. Worried, Liu Erlong offered the bowl. "Xiaogong, why don't you head back and rest for a while?" he said gently. "Standing out here won't do you any good. Once Tang San collects himself, he'll be fine." He hesitated, then added, "You're worried about Tang San, but you need to take care of yourself too." Xiao Gang waved the porridge away with a wan smile. "Erlong, thank you for caring. But you don't know Tang San the way I do. He's fiercely proud and supremely competitive. If he's comfortable and everything goes smoothly, he pushes himself even harder. But the moment he suffers defeat or setback, he can't let it go. He'll brood over it until it eats him alive. If he'd enjoyed an easy, uninterrupted rise as a soul master, this wouldn't be a problem. But after successive blows, a boy with his kind of pride risks carrying psychological scars that won't fade. That's what I'm afraid of now, him losing faith in himself." Silence fell between them as the first light of morning spread across the courtyard. Both men knew that Tang San's spirit would break only if his resolve did, and for Xiaogang, keeping that resolve unshaken was everything. "Even if he acts rashly, it's on me as his teacher," the master replied quietly. "But if his impulsiveness ruins his life and mine, doesn't that make me a failure as an instructor?" At her words, Liu Erlong bristled with anger. She leveled a sharp look at Xiaogang. "Xiaogang, who is this Cheng Xiao? Why does he keep picking fights with Tang San? And how did he end up allied with Dugu Bo?" I've heard his spirit power is already beyond level 50, and he's barely old enough to be that strong. Is he even human? To Liu Erlong, Tang San was the undisputed prodigy among his peers. The notion of someone so young eclipsing him seemed unbelievable. What's his age exactly? To reach the Soul King realm, let alone push past level 50, did he use some forbidden life-draining elixir? Xiao Gang shrugged helplessly. Your guess is as good as mine. All I know is that Cheng Xiao must be a disciple of that hidden powerhouse no one's ever seen. He'd arrived at the Junior Soul Masters Academy, just like Tang San, enrolling as a part-time student. As soon as the headmaster learned of his progress, he sneered coldly. Do you really expect me to believe that a backgroundless youth could advance this far? His tone dripped with contempt, but beneath it lay unmistakable envy. After all, hitting spirit level 50 at 14 was nothing short of dazzling, especially to a veteran great soul master in his late 40s who hadn't managed to break level 30. Such brilliance in someone so young was a stinging rebuke to his own stalled career. No sooner had the headmaster's words faded than the heavy door creaked open. Tang San stumbled out, every muscle trembling with fatigue. Had he ever felt sunlight before? The sudden flood of brightness made his vision swim, and he felt the world tilt dangerously. Only the Xuantian skill operating in his meridians kept him from collapsing. The moment the headmaster saw him, disappointment vanished from his face, replaced by exhilaration. He hurried forward, clapped a huge hand on Tang San's shoulder, and beamed. "Xiao San," he cried, "you've done it." Tang San had been waiting outside Master Qian's study for what felt like ages, pacing nervously in the courtyard. The moment the door creaked open, he hurried forward. "Master, I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. Master Qian waved him inside with an easy smile. "Nonsense. Come in, come in. What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, Tang San forced a smile and settled before his teacher's desk. "Master, I have a question I've been turning over in my head. If you wouldn't mind answering it for your disciple." "Don't worry, my boy." Master Qian leaned back in his chair, folding his hands behind his head. "Even if it's 100 questions, I'll answer every one." Tang San's smile trembled, and he hesitated for a moment, gathering courage. "Master, is blue silver grass truly a useless martial spirit? Does it have any power whatsoever to stand against the stronger spirits?" Master Qian's expression softened as he met Tang San's anxious gaze. He sighed, then spoke gently. "Xiao San, I can't bear to lie to you. In itself, blue silver grass is indeed considered weak, one of the most mundane martial spirits you could inherit. Its strength doesn't come from innate power or destructive force." He paused, giving Tang San a long, earnest look. "It's only because of you, your heart, your persistence, and your creativity, that blue silver grass has grown into something formidable. Without your talent and dedication, it would be just as ordinary as the textbooks say." As he spoke, Master Qian glanced away briefly, as if worrying he'd been too blunt. Then he reached out and placed a reassuring hand on Tang San's shoulder. "Believe in yourself and in your spirit, and you'll prove every doubter wrong." Master cleared his throat, his tone gentle. "Don't worry, Miss Tang San. Even if your blue-silver grass spirit seems weak now, I can train you into a peerless talent. As your soul power rises, you will awaken your second martial soul, a Haoqian hammer equipped with 10,000-year spirit rings. Who then could possibly stand against you? You will become the new Haoqian Douluo of sect Tianzong." Tang San's last flicker of hope shattered. Rely on the clear sky hammer after all? Even his own master dismissed blue silver grass as worthless, insisting that only the hammer could grant true power. Why, then, had he ever chosen the grass in the first place? He recalled his father's parting words, "Wield the hammer in your left hand to defend the grass in your right." Only now did he see the deeper meaning. Unless he himself grew strong enough, he could never protect that seemingly fragile martial soul. What are you even trying to protect with a worthless spirit like blue silver grass? Master Wan's voice roared through the hall. If you truly cared about protection, why not cultivate the clear sky hammer? It makes no sense to cling to this feeble grass and yet refuse the one spirit that could actually defend it. Are you really going to depend on a weak spirit to protect itself? It's impossible. Tang San lifted his head, his eyes steady. "Master, I've thought it through. If I awaken and train my second spirit, I can defeat Cheng Xiao. That's the path I want to take. I ask you to teach me. Master Wan's temper snapped. He seized Tang San by the shoulders, his grip like iron. What did you say? Xiao-san, have you lost your mind? Have you forgotten what your father told you? You were meant to focus on the clear sky hammer. Have you come here just to let him down? If I let you train your second martial soul, the clear sky hammer, all your progress here would be for nothing. The extra spirit ring would overwhelm your body, causing it to collapse in a way we could never fix. You'd be courting death. Tang San's heart leapt. But master, he said, voice earnest, if I don't develop my second soul, how can I hope to defeat Cheng Xiao? How can I lead Shrek to win the all-continental high-level Spirit Master Elite competition? How else can I prove to the world the validity of your martial soul theory? Normally so obedient, Tang San was on fire with determination. He longed to win, to reclaim everything he'd lost and restore his honor as a Tang sect disciple. Only by beating Cheng Xiao and capturing the championship could he fulfill his teacher's and his father's expectations. Only then could he recover his dignity. Master Wu shook his head and smiled kindly. Xiao-san, do you really think I value fame and glory above all else? You've got the wrong idea about your teacher. Master Wu's gentle rebuke cut through Tang San's daze. Tang San blinked, struggling to steady himself under the calm, steadfast gaze. I understand how heavy your burdens feel right now, Master Wu went on, voice soft but resolute. I know the hardships you've endured, day after day of training, the sacrifices you've made. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself this? If you give up now, what becomes of all those years of effort, all that sweat and determination? Would it mean nothing? Tang San's shoulders slumped as he wrestled with the truth in his master's words. You may be ready to discard yourself, Master Wu said, placing a firm hand on Tang San's shoulder, but I am not, and certainly not your teacher. As my disciple, you owe it to both of us to see this through. Do you understand that simple truth? Silence fell. Outside, the wind rustled through the courtyard pines, carrying the promise of resolve. Tang San looked up, conviction returning to his eyes. He nodded once, solemnly, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead. Chapter 197, I Favor Obedient Disciples. Tang San opened his mouth to protest, but no words came. But teacher, His master laid a gentle hand on his shoulder, meeting his eyes with deep understanding. Xiao-san, I know how much this pains you, he said with a sigh. You're free to disobey me, but why won't you even listen to your own father? Tang San's heart wrenched. He stared at the ground, utterly speechless. The master's voice grew firmer. If you believe I'm harming you, tell me, has your father ever done you any less harm? Those words struck Tang San like a physical blow. He stood frozen, caught between anger and despair. Finally, the master shook his head. Forget this for now. Let's go inside and talk. He threw Lu Erlong a quick glance, an unspoken instruction to leave them alone, then guided Tang San into the small wooden cabin. Inside, Master Chen dragged over 2 stools and patted one, inviting Tang San to sit. The door creaked shut behind Lu Erlong, leaving them in the hush of the room. As Tang San settled onto the rough-hewn stool, his master's tone turned grave. Xiao-san, do you realize what's at stake here? If you continue down this path, you'll disappoint not only me, but your father as well. He's placed all his hopes on you. The cabin fell silent, the master's words hanging heavily in the air. Tang San felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him, and for the first time, he wasn't sure which voice he should obey. Master's only way to sway Tang San was to keep invoking Tang Hao's name. After all, no one mattered to Tang San more than Tang Hao. Yet even so, Tang San, who knew his master so well, detected the deep concern and fear behind those words. I'm sorry, teacher. Tang San's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he bowed his head in respect. It was my own recklessness. What his master couldn't know was what Tang San was truly thinking. Having lived 2 lifetimes, Tang San was far more reflective than most, and all too prone to overthinking himself into a corner. In his heart, his teacher was as dear as a father. If his father said that this decision was for his own good, then it must be right. And after all the years they'd spent together, how could Tang San doubt his master's integrity? No sooner had the words left his teacher's lips than Tang San felt his earlier rebellion ebbing away. Though his resentment toward the blue silver grass spirit remained, his resolve to develop a second martial soul had lost much of its intensity. Tang San frowned, doubt flickering in his eyes. Master, are you sure my blue silver grass can ever reach the level you described? I've been working it up to the 4th ring, but the higher I go, the more obvious its weaknesses become. I even lost control of it when I sparred with Cheng Xiao. His master sat back, watching him with a calm, almost bemused expression. Xiao-san, he said gently, do you really consider those to be insurmountable problems? Tang San bit his lip, uncertain. There's no such thing as a useless martial soul, his master continued. There are only soul masters who don't know how to bring out its potential. You must remember that it's not the blue silver grass itself that makes you powerful. Your own strength elevates it. Just as your father's clear sky hammer would never have been formidable without him, your blue silver grass has talent because you do. He leaned forward, hands steepled. That's why I opposed you taking on a second martial spirit too hastily. If your personal cultivation isn't solid, how could you hope to master anything beyond your core ability? Strengthen yourself first, then and only then will your spirit truly awaken. Tang San inhaled, digesting every word. He saw now that his frustrations weren't with the spirit, but with his own limitations. His master's expression sobered. Don't take my words as mere criticism. Look at Cheng Xiao. Her talent and diligence have propelled her ahead of you in raw growth. That's simply the reality you face. But talent alone isn't enough. Nor is spirit strength without proper control. Focus on refining your fundamentals, and the blue-silver grass will rise with you. Silence fell as Tang San nodded, resolve settling in. The path ahead might be steeper than he'd hoped, but now he understood where to place his efforts. And with renewed determination, he vowed to master both himself and his spirit, to prove that there truly are no worthless souls, only masters yet to be made. Master Li tilted his head, studying his young disciple intently. It's possible Cheng Xiao has twin martial spirits, both plant-based, like your blue-silver grass. The disciple's brow furrowed. But if that's the case, how do you explain my grass spirit failing so utterly against him? Master Li tapped his chin thoughtfully. Exactly my point. If Cheng Xiao's second spirit is as powerful as you suspect, how formidable must it be? True, blue-silver grass is one of the weaker spirits, but it shouldn't be completely helpless. He paused, then shifted his tone, laying a reassuring hand on the disciple's shoulder. And don't think Cheng Xiao will eclipse you forever. You're not yet 15, yet your soul power has already surpassed level 40, and you've secured 2 spirit bones. You know their value better than anyone. He smiled, eyes bright with confidence. Yes, Cheng Xiao's soul power is higher, and his martial spirit is rare, but that doesn't determine your fate. Cultivation rewards persistence above all. If your soul power were truly equal, he wouldn't have overwhelmed you so decisively. Keep training hard. I believe in you. When your spirit power surges, Cheng Xiao will finally feel threatened by you, the master said, his tone sharp. If you still can't defeat him in the future, then you're no longer my disciple or the genius with twin martial spirits I believed you to be. You'll just be a disappointment. Do you understand? Tang San absorbed his master's words, a flicker of comprehension stirring inside him. Yet despite this slight clarity, he couldn't shake his frustration. He hated living in Cheng Xiao's shadow. In his previous life, scratch that, in both of his past lives, he'd prided himself on his dignity. The reality of constant defeat grated against him. His master snorted coldly. A bit of impatience could wreck a grand scheme. Do you intend to spend your entire life overshadowed by Cheng Xiao? He paused, then continued more quietly. I also have some suspicions about Cheng Xiao, but they won't be good news for you just yet. Here's what we'll do. With some time still left before the preliminaries end, devote yourself wholly to training and healing. Strengthen your body, refine your spirit. When you step onto that arena again, you'll be ready. Tang San met his master's gaze, determination burning in his eyes. No more second place. No more living in Cheng Xiao's shadow. It was time to reclaim his dignity and prove that he truly was the twin spirit prodigy his master believed him to be. In 2 days' time, I'll take you into the Soul Beast Forest, Master said, and we'll see if you can secure another soul bone. A second soul bone will tip the odds in your favor when you face Cheng Xiao again, he went on. At the very least, you won't be at such a disadvantage. As he spoke, Master shot Tang San a pointed look, half warning, half amusement, wondering if this stubborn boy would argue again. Tang San met his gaze calmly. I understand, teacher, he replied. Master raised an eyebrow in surprise. Tang San glanced away, then asked, Easy for you to say that soul bones are rare. How exactly do you plan to get one? Master stroked his chin thoughtfully and offered a reassuring smile. Don't worry, I have a strategy. Soul bones may be scarce, but if you're willing to push yourself, there's a way. He paused, his tone growing firm. Once you've fully recovered, the soul bone you claim will be reserved for our golden iron triangle. Tang San's eyes lit up. Understood, teacher. A ripple of excitement passed through him. Finally, there was a concrete plan and hope on the horizon. Master placed a gentle hand on Tang San's head and spoke quietly, his voice warm. Xiao-san, I don't expect you to carry burdens you cannot bear, but remember this, in the whole world, only your father and I will never harm you. He paused, meeting Tang San's downcast eyes. From now on, if you run into trouble, don't try to deal with it all on your own. Tell me or your father, and we will face it with you. Do you understand? Tang San bowed his head in shame, then lifted it to meet his teacher's gaze. Yes, teacher, I understand. A faint, pleased smile curved the master's lips. His obedient disciple had learned well. Far away in Wuhan City, the Pope's palace gleamed like a jewel in the afternoon sun. Pope Bibi Dong sat at the head of a long oval table, her golden robe cascading to the floor. In one hand she held a 2-meter-long scepter, its surface studded with countless gems that caught the light and scattered it across the chamber walls. Behind her stood Jue Gui and 2 other Douluo, their expressions as still and unreadable as marble statues. Nearly 20 dignitaries were seated along the table's polished rim, each clad in resplendent attire and bearing an air of solemn formality. Not a single person dared to break the silence. Every pair of eyes was fixed reverently on Pope Bibi Dong. They waited, hearts and minds attentive, for her to speak. Chapter 198, Visions in the Far North. Since everyone's here, let's begin. Pope Bibi Dong's deep voice filled the council chamber. At once, every Spirit Hall disciple sat up straight, their eyes fixed on her. Though her predecessors had all been formidable leaders, none matched Bibi Dong's reputation for iron resolve. She was, after all, a woman, yet she governed with ruthless efficiency, and even the Elder Hall dared not question her decisions. In the last 10 years, no dissent had surfaced. Under her guidance, the Spirit Hall had grown so powerful that it now rivaled both empires. All agreed, only Bibi Dong could lead them onward, and no one wished to stand in her way. She paused, letting the weight of her authority settle over the assembly. Then she continued, according to reports from the Platinum Main Hall in Tiando City, it's time to reveal a sensitive matter we've kept under wraps. Our esteemed Elder Ju once accepted an outside disciple. The grand hall was hushed, torchlight flickering across stern faces. At its head sat Grand Elder Wusheng, his voice low but deadly clear. Although this youth has yet to join the Spirit Hall, he began, there's no doubt that in the near future this 14-year-old prodigy, already at the Soul King level, will become one of our finest weapons. Murmurs of assent rippled through the assembled leaders. One of them, Vice Hallmaster Qing, that spoke next, eyes hard as flint. The Continental Elite Soul Master competition is about to begin. There are many gifted Soul Masters who still resist our influence. It's high time we dealt with them. As soon as the preliminaries conclude, Grand Elder Wusheng continued, we'll return to the Spirit Hall for the finals. I'm assigning Ghost Douluo and Ju Douluo to lead our strike force, backed by 20 of our Cardinal rank members, each above level 70. We will crush this boy before he can even break into the circle of titled Douluos. He paused to let the threat settle over the council. Genius Soul Masters may be rare, he added, voice dropping to a growl, but a single one, especially this one, poses too great a risk. We must eliminate him here and now. A heavier silence fell. No one dared speak against it. Remember, Wusheng said softly, Hao Qian Douluo is our enemy, and his son has already begun to rise in the Soul Master world. Everyone here knows the centuries-old feud between Tang Hao and the Spirit Hall. We cannot allow this boy to live, to grow up resenting us. or worse, to one day overthrow the hall that has endured for millennia. With that, the meeting was adjourned. Outside, the torches guttered, and the fate of a young genius was sealed. Everyone, Pope Bibi Dong began, her majestic gaze sweeping over the assembled Spirit Hall dignitaries. I trust none of you will object to the plan I've proposed? Though her tone was composed, each person in the hall, everyone a senior Spirit Hall official, knew exactly what she meant. Even the more slow-witted among them dared not let a shadow of dissent cross their features. Your Holiness, a seasoned elder finally spoke up, rising from his seat with a slight bow. We have no quarrel with the operation itself, but we would like to know the name of Elder Ju's disciple you mentioned. After all, he is Elder Ju's protege. If we know his name, we can make the necessary arrangements back at headquarters and ensure that no one unwittingly offends him. Bibi Dong regarded the asker thoughtfully. A reasonable request. She gestured to the stern figure standing quietly behind her. Elder Ju, if you please, introduce your disciple. Ju Douluo stepped forward, his commanding presence silencing the murmurs in the chamber. He swept his eyes over the officials and spoke in a calm, measured voice that nevertheless carried undeniable power. My disciple's name is Cheng Xiao. At just 14 years old, he has already broken through to the Soul King realm, a truly astonishing feat for someone his age. A hush fell over the hall as the assembled officials absorbed the gravity of those words. In the Spirit Hall, strength commanded respect, and Cheng Xiao's reputation, even at such a young age, clearly warranted theirs. This is the only person on the entire continent to have reached such a level, Bibi Dong announced, her voice echoing through the vast council chamber. Therefore, until Elder Ju's disciple returns to the Spirit Hall, I expect every bishop to shoulder greater responsibility. A dozen shocked murmurs rippled through the room. A 14-year-old Soul King, such raw talent would turn heads in any organization, even in the prestigious Spirit Hall. Before anyone could voice their astonishment, Bibi Dong slammed her fist on the heavy oak table. A palpable wave of authority pulsed outward, and the hall fell into a tense silence. Her eyes glinted with steely resolve as she spoke again, her tone low and unyielding. Now that you know her name, we will strike swiftly. Each bishop is to assign one cardinal to carry out the assassination. Remember this. If you fail to eliminate her, you have me, Bibi Dong, to answer to. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Should anyone dare defy my orders, I will tear away every shred of protection you've clung to until now. The bishops exchanged fearful glances, then bowed their heads in unison. Yes, Your Holiness the Pope, they intoned, their voices shaky but resolute. After the meeting finally broke up, Zhu Gui and the two Douluo rose to leave with the bishops, but Bibi Dong quietly intercepted them at the door. One by one, the bishops departed, leaving only the three of them standing in the marble corridor. Zhu Gui glanced at his companions. The two Douluo met his gaze. No one spoke. They waited for Bibi Dong to explain. The silence stretched on until at last she broke it. Elder Ju, there's a matter I need you to handle. Zhu Douluo bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, please speak. Bibi Dong trailed her fingertips along the glossy surface of the table beside her, her voice calm but tinged with urgency. I've received troubling reports from the Soul Beast Forest in the far north. Something extraordinary has manifested there. When you return, I want you to secretly send Tuo Bashi, leader of the Holy Dragon sect, to investigate. This mission must remain classified. No announcements, no leaks. Zhu Douluo's brow furrowed in confusion, but he bowed again and accepted the order. After discussing the necessary precautions, secure communication channels, discreet supply caches, trusted escorts, Bibi Dong leaned back and rubbed her temples. Don't look so bewildered, she said softly. I know you have questions. Let's discuss them. Since this is a covert mission, why did you let the Holy Dragon sect at Tuo Bashi slip away? Ghost Elder Douluo's voice trembled with suspicion. He and Elder Zhu Douluo exchanged a quick glance before stammering, We didn't dare. Disobey. Bibi Dong arched an eyebrow. She'd barely spared them a glance until now. You two have served me for years, she said lightly, rising to her feet. Surely you know my methods by now. She began to pace, her robe swirling around her. A few days ago, I sensed an energy surge, nothing like ordinary soul power, but just as strong, maybe even stronger. At first, I chalked it up to fatigue and imagination. She stopped and faced them. Then yesterday, the Grand Minister summoned me personally. He ordered me to send a contingent straight to the northern Soul Beast Forest. Apparently, something unprecedented has appeared there. Ghost Douluo's eyes widened. The Grand Minister? He never comes to you in person. Precisely. Bibi Dong allowed a thin smile. Whoever, or whatever, drew his direct attention must be formidable indeed. Unfortunately, he gave no further details before taking his leave. She turned to the two elders with a hard glint in her eyes. Guimei, Yue Guan, you've both served Wuhun Palace for decades. I'm assigning you to this mission. No objections? The two elders bowed deeply. None at all, Master. I had intended to assign this covert mission to someone else, but then I reconsidered. If anything happens to the two of you, I'll go with you myself. There really is no one better suited. After all these years, you've labored in obscurity without so much as a whisper of credit. This assassination must succeed, and if you can, bring Cheng Xiao back for me to see. Tell me, what is the senior disciple of Wuhun Palace doing enrolled in an outside academy? Ju Douluo and Ghost Douluo bowed in unison. Your Holiness, we understand. Very good. Now go, quickly. Bibi Dong waved them off, her tone sharp. The two disciples dropped their heads in salute, blurred into twin afterimages, and vanished through the palace doors. Left alone in the silent chamber, Bibi Dong's fingers curled into tight fists. Her eyes glittered with resentment. Chandaoliu, she muttered through clenched teeth, I'm eager to discover what kind of threat could intimidate your peerless Douluo so deeply. She paused, a calculating smile flickering across her lips. If Tuobashi pulls this off, perhaps I'll finally have grounds to expel the worship hall from Wuhun altogether. It looks like the only text provided is the chapter's closing line. In order to deliver a coherent, idiomatic rewrite of the entire chapter, I'll need the full content you'd like me to revise. Could you please paste the rest of the chapter here? Once I have the complete text, I can polish it into a fluent, natural-sounding English version. Chapter 199, Low-Key Appearance. A single toll from the ancient bell echoed through the Tiando Grand Spirit Arena, its deep resonance rippling outward for miles. At the sound, every young soul master resting in the arena's lounges snapped awake, eyes blazing with renewed fighting spirit. In the 7-Star Academy lounge, Cheng Xiao and Du Gubo had paused their conversation at the bell's first note. Cheng Xiao rose, moving to the window and gazing out at the sprawling arena below. His heart thrummed with excitement. Today marked the greatest event in the Soul Master world. Why couldn't we take first place in the qualifiers? Cheng Xiao asked, turning back to Du Gubo. Du Gubo grinned, flashing a row of confident teeth. Come on, you know I believe in you. We'll push harder next time. Below them, in the central plaza of the Grand Spirit Arena, stood the colossal spirit fighting platform. Usually dormant, it was reserved for the most prestigious team battles, activated only when a squad bearing the coveted diamond badge took the stage. As the arena's supreme commander signaled its ignition, floodlights swept the platform's polished surface, heralding the start of mainland China's most thrilling competition. From high above, spectators cleared their throats in anticipation. The platform's sudden glow seemed to challenge every soul master to rise to the occasion. For Cheng Xiao, Du Gubo, and every other competitor, this bell's call was more than a signal. It was the heartbeat of the Soul Master world, summoning them to their greatest trials yet. The plaza was enormous, yet even its vast expanse couldn't contain the throng gathered for the biggest event in 5 years. Every inch of the stands and walkways was packed shoulder to shoulder, the air alive with excited chatter and cheering. From where they stood, Cheng Xiao and Du Gubo exchanged astonished glances. This wasn't the first day of qualifiers, so why hadn't the crowd thinned out? If anything, the lines outside had only grown longer. Only the competitors had special access, or else entering the soul fighting arena would have been all but impossible. Stepping out of the lounge, Cheng Xiao leaned forward on the railing, eyes sweeping over the entire arena. The roar from the general seating below washed over him, igniting a familiar fire in his chest. No matter the contest, once you step into the ring, you can't help but aim for the top. Beside him, Du Gubo's gaze was equally intense, but there was a hint of resignation in his posture. Cheng Xiao knew why. The academy had deliberately benched Douluo to give other students a chance to shine. Even so, both of them felt the same surge of ambition. The competition was about to begin, and they were determined to leave their mark. Cheng Xiao could have simply sent her shadow soldiers in to fight on their own. In a straight-up match, they'd have crushed the competition. But what she really looked forward to was the soul combat tournament itself. Last time, Qian Renshui, who still seemed to bear a grudge, had refused to let Cheng Xiao participate, and she'd been itching for a rematch ever since. So when she learned that Qian Renshui would sit this one out, that Cheng Xiao herself would open today's first match at 7-Star Academy, her excitement nearly burst its bounds. "Cheng Xiao, are you all right?" Ye Lingling hurried over, scanning her friend's eyes with genuine concern. Cheng Xiao offered a reassuring smile. "I'm fine. It's just that the energy drain was a bit heavier than I expected. No big deal." "That's a relief," Ye Lingling said, exhaling in relaxation before breaking into a playful grin. "But seriously, your last performance was show-stopping. After today, you're going to have every major sect trying to recruit you." Cheng Xiao chuckled softly. "Let them try. I'm not going anywhere." Cheng Xiao leaned back against the low wall of the academy courtyard, stretching his arms above his head. "How can those so-called forces ever feel comfortable here?" he asked, voice casual. "Honestly, why join someone else's faction way? And you could found your own." Yi Lingling tilted her head, a playful smile curving her lips. "You mean, after graduation, you want me to stay and help you build a faction?" She raised an eyebrow. "Exactly how did you picture me helping?" Cheng Xiao rubbed his chin, amusement dancing in his eyes. "There's still plenty of time before we graduate," he replied. "Use these months to think it over. Don't rush your answer." She shook her head, the smile never leaving her face. "I'm not rushing, because there's nothing to decide. You've asked, and a friend never says no." A sudden warmth bloomed in Cheng Xiao's chest at her words. He opened his mouth to reply, but the steady hum of student chatter around them dropped off abruptly. "Look," Ye Lingling whispered, nodding toward the main gate. Dozens of onlookers were parting to make way for a grand procession. "Emperor Shuiye has arrived." Cheng Xiao followed her gaze, his plans forgotten for the moment. He fell silent, watching as the imperial entourage stepped through the gates. Boom! The ancient bells echoed through the soul-fighting arena, abruptly silencing the tumultuous roar of the crowd. From a hidden passageway, Emperor Shuiye and Ning Fengji emerged and took their places in the front row of the VIP section. A hush fell as each spectator turned their gaze toward the imperial box. After a brief pause, Emperor Shuiye rose. His hand rested on the amplified Horcrux device before him, a relic of mysterious power. His eyes swept across the vast arena, sweeping over cheering students and colorful banners, until they settled on a lone figure in black perched atop a distant platform. A faint, knowing smile curved the Emperor's lips. Then in a voice both aged and resonant, he called out, "All college teams, enter the battlefield preparation area." At his command, the high platforms that ringed the arena erupted in motion. Contestants from every college sprang into the air, their bodies tracing graceful arcs against the bright lights. One by one, they descended into the designated staging zone below. Bang! A massive combatant crashed down as though he were a living mountain, the impact ripping a spiderweb of cracks across the dark, reinforced floor. The sheer force of his landing sent onlookers' hearts racing, a stark reminder of the titans about to clash in this grand tournament. The moment he touched down, the spectators around him erupted into murmurs of surprise. They recognized him instantly. Hu Yanzhenji, the indomitable leader of the Elephant Armor sect. In all of Sunhuyan, no other soul master carried such brutal, unrestrained power. Barely had Hu Yanzhenji's boots met the arena floor when a striking youth from Shenfeng Academy burst into view. With a single elegant gesture, he raised his arms in greeting, then tapped his toe on the platform's edge, launching himself into the air like a living spring. Beneath his feet, a spiral of cyan wind formed, cushioning his descent until he drifted down as lightly as a feather. Every motion was precise, imbued with effortless grace. "Is that the captain of Shenfeng Academy's assault squad?" someone whispered. At his age, to wield airflow so masterfully, no wings, no aids, that's true genius. As all eyes followed Feng Xiaoqian's silky glide to the ground, a low rumble of thunder suddenly rolled through the sky, halting the crowd in their tracks. Lightning crackled overhead, drawing gasps from the crowd. In an instant, everyone recognized the newcomer. He was the Thunder Spirit in person, sole master of Thunder Academy, bearer of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex martial spirit, one of the twin prodigies of the legendary Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus family, and younger brother to Yu Tianheng, Yu Tianxin. Though his arrival lacked the outright spectacle of the first two champions who had appeared, Yu Tianxin's crackling aura and handsome features still sent a thrill through the ranks of admiring students. No sooner had whispers spread than a dark blur shot across the arena, seizing every eye. Before anyone could get a clear look, it vanished. Puzzled murmurs rippled through the assembly as they scanned the battleground. Then, standing calmly in Seven Stars Academy's preparation area, was a single figure dressed head to toe in black. It was Cheng Xiao, the celebrated player who had brought Shrek Academy to its knees. Unlike the grand entrances of the other three luminaries, Cheng Xiao's appearance was remarkably low-key. Yet even in silence, the air around him buzzed with a promise of fierce competition. Across the arena, the assembled Soul Masters couldn't help but feel their hearts pound at Cheng Xiao's extraordinary power, and that was before they even registered the blistering speed he'd just unleashed. Chapter 200. The Elephant Armor Sect is defeated. Cheng Xiao's arrival stirred the entire arena. It was almost unheard of for someone who had just toppled Shrek Academy to stride in without a single sign of fatigue or injury. Seated at the VIP table alongside him were Ning Fengji, Grandmaster of the Qibao Glazed Sect, and Salas, the Platinum Bishop. But two more figures had drawn equal, if not greater attention: Bone Douluo Gu Rong, and an utterly mysterious giant of a man. From the moment he entered, all eyes in the hall fixed on him. High-ranking officials leaned forward in their seats, and spectators in the distant balconies craned their necks for a better view. It wasn't merely his unfamiliar face that captivated them, but his sheer, overwhelming size. Even sitting down, he dwarfed those around him. An ordinary man standing would barely reach his shoulder. Next to the tall, lean frame of Bone Douluo Gu Rong, he looked like a mountain incarnate. By the loftiest visual estimate, he had to stand at least 8 feet tall. His skin was a deep bronze shade, stretched tight over dense, rippling muscle. He took up no fewer than 3 seats at the VIP table, as if it were barely enough room. And yet, despite his bulk, he sat with perfect poise, surveying the arena with a calm, inscrutable expression. A hush fell over the audience. Never before had they seen a competitor so colossal. Whispers spread like wildfire. Was this newcomer the champion of the infamous Elephant Armor Sect? If so, what hope did any opponent stand against a living mountain such as this? The tension in the air was palpable, as though every spectator held his breath, waiting to witness history in the making. At the VIP table sat an imposing old man whose dark skin held an almost metallic sheen. His eyes were enormous and luminous, like polished copper bells, and his flowing white hair and beard marked him as a septuagenarian at least. Merely observing him projected a palpable aura of power. Ning Fengji hadn't expected to find Hu Yanzhen, the legendary Skybreaker, among tonight's honored guests. Bone Douluo leaned over and murmured, "Fengji, old Hu Yanzhen is here. If the Elephant Armor Academy is sending him, they've come to make a statement." Ning Fengji offered a small, confident smile. "You'll understand soon enough when you learn who the Elephant Armor Academy is up against. Salas himself requested Hu Yanzhen's presence. He's worried about his grandson. Should anything go wrong, Hu Yanzhen will be our ultimate safeguard." Wuhan Palace's reputation as the continent's most formidable power, even rivaling the 2 great empires, rested on its alliance with the 4 lesser sects of the 7 great sects. Of those 7, the Qibao Glazed Sect, one of the top 3, has long thrown its weight behind the heavenly champions in their conflict with the imperial royal family. The Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan has declared strict neutrality. The Haochen sect offers only the faintest support to the Star Luo Empire. As for the lower 4 sects, their ties to the Spirit Hall are all but official, close enough that no outsider would doubt the connection. The Elephant Armor Sect, situated just beyond Tiando City's outskirts, naturally sent a host of disciples to watch its academy's tournament here. A murmur rippled through the crowd as one newcomer caught everyone's eye, a lone youth garbed in black. Hu Yanjin narrowed his gaze. "Could that be Cheng Xiao?" he whispered, tension creeping into his voice. Rumor credited the young man with defeating an entire academy by himself, and in style. At his side, Solace already knew both Cheng Xiao's name and the true power lurking behind him. Bound by the Pope's orders, however, he could only issue a cautious warning. "Brother Huyan, I'd advise against making an enemy of him. The forces backing Cheng Xiao dwarf anything the Elephant Armor sect can muster." Hu Yanzhen shot Solace a cold look and scoffed. "If you're so afraid, just say so outright." Yet even as he spoke, the flicker of concern in his eyes betrayed him. And to know what kind of power could possibly support Wuhun Palace's elephant armor," Zong said, his voice tightly wound with anxiety. "If we end up facing 7-Star Academy later," one of his allies replied confidently, "my grandson Hu Yanli will carry Xiangjia Academy all the way to the finals." "Oh, Brother Hu Yan, that's not what I meant," Solace blurted out, realizing too late that Hu Yanli had completely misinterpreted him. He opened his mouth to explain, but Hu Yanli was already deep in conversation with the others and paid him no attention. "Wait." Before Solace could get another word in, delegations from Shrek Academy, Blaze Academy, Tiando Royal Academy, Tianshui Academy, and Kanghui Academy poured into the hall, turning the place into a buzzing hive of activity. Cheng Xiao surveyed the crowd and frowned. Tang San, the heart of Shrek Academy's team, was nowhere to be seen. Neither were the masters Flanders or Liu Erlong. Even the Academy's vice president, Zhao Wuji of the Fudo Ming Wang clan, was conspicuously absent. "Now that everyone is assembled, let's begin the second round of qualifiers," Emperor Shuiye announced with a faint smile. "But before we start, a brief reminder. Though our empire delights in spirited contests, I expect you to hold back. You are students, not bloodthirsty warriors. This arena is not for killing, so temper your strength." At his words, a few contestants gave cautious nods, but most regarded the warning with indifference. Victory was their sole aim, and they knew that as long as no one perished, every tactic was fair game. Their only real concern was losing control and causing accidental harm, an all-too-easy prospect when wielding great power. With his speech complete, Emperor Shuiye stepped aside. A palace maid then escorted Ning Fengji to the front dais, where he prepared to draw and announce the pairings for this pivotal second round. Ning Fengji's voice rang out over the packed stadium. "Welcome back to the second round of qualifiers. First up, Oakland College versus Blazing College." A wave of applause rippled through the crowd. A few heartbeats later, he raised the stakes. "Next, 7-Star Academy versus Elephant Armor Academy." The announcement sent the audience into an uproar. Fans craned their necks and exchanged eager glances. Rumors of Cheng Xiao's legendary performances still fueled every conversation. Though he wouldn't compete today, the prospect of seeing 7-Star Academy in action was enough to send pulses racing. And finally, Ning Fengji concluded, Kanghui College against Shrek College. With the matchups official, excitement crackled in the air. 7-Star Academy would field their stalwart veterans from the famed Huangdo team, with one lineup tweak. Star player Qian Renshui steps in for Ye Lingling, promising new tactics and fresh momentum. The arena hushed as the first duel kicked off. Blazing College attacked with ferocious speed, only to be met by Oakland College's rock-solid defense. In a matter of minutes, Oakland clinched a swift, decisive victory, eliciting cheers that thundered from one end of the stadium to the other. Now, all eyes turned to center stage. The grand showdown was about to begin. 7-Star Academy versus Elephant Armor Academy. Players slid on their headsets, fingers hovering over controls. A collective breath held in the stands, the tension so thick you could almost taste it. And then, with a single referee's whistle, the battle for supremacy between two of the Academy world's greatest powerhouses was officially underway. Hu Yanjin couldn't hide his delight when he saw that Cheng Xiao wasn't participating. Without that formidable opponent on the field, Elephant Armor Academy's chances of winning had just skyrocketed. Yet what happened next stunned everyone. 7-Star Academy unveiled two Soul King-level fighters, Qian Renshui and Du Guyan, backed by an elite cadre of Soul Sect cultivators. Qian's ferocious assaults, coupled with Duguyan's seamless support, tore through Elephant Armor Academy's defenses. Their opponents, routed and forced to flee in disarray. Even Hu Yanli, whose legendary head soul bone was thought to be invincible, was gravely wounded under the combined onslaught of Yu Tianheng and the Shijia brothers. From his seat in the VIP box, Hu Yanjin stared in disbelief at the wreckage of his academy team. His expression turned ashen, fists clenching so hard that the knuckles reddened. Across from him, Platinum Bishop Solace let out a quiet sigh of relief. Had Hu Yanzhen spotted Cheng Xiao today, who knew what kind of trouble he'd stir up? Better that the match ended without that added complication. Meanwhile, after watching 7-Star Academy's decisive victory, Cheng Xiao felt his interest waning. Ye Lingling noticed his restlessness and smiled. "Shall we take a walk?" she suggested, offering him a welcome escape from the tension in the arena. Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling hit it off instantly and slipped away from the fighting arena without drawing any attention. Yet on the opposite side of the contestants' viewing platform, a pair of brooding eyes remained locked on Cheng Xiao. The moment the two of them vanished from sight, the watchful gaze melted back into the shadows.